Welcome to Media-eval, a medieval pop culture podcast, where we talk about how medieval and medieval-inspired movies, TV, and books depict the medieval world. What do they get right? What do they get wrong? And what do they tell us about how modern people see the medieval past? I'm Sarah ifft, a medieval historian, and today I'm joined by guests Ollie Brady and Jillian Ness Sterling to talk about Netflix's new Arthurian show, Cursed. Welcome, Ollie and Jillian.
Hello.
I realized I'm waving.
Yeah, the way this is not a visual medium. You've forgotten how to podcast. So, Jillian, would you like to go ahead and tell the listeners a little bit about yourself and why you wanted to join us to talk about this show?
Sure. So, hello, I'm Jillian. I am coming to you from the Great White North. Not white right now because it's the dead of summer in Toronto and it's very hot. But I was excited to talk about this show because I enjoy Arthurian pop culture. My husband and I, our very first date back in the year of 2004 was the King Arthur movie with Keira Knightley.
Oh.
So it has warmed its way into my heart. Keira Knightley is a very pretty woman, and I think that was part of my husband's reason for wanting to go to the movie, to be perfectly honest. So we watched that, and my husband also worked at a Renaissance fair, and my engagement ring is from said Renaissance fair. So we love this sort of era in history. Well, you know, I wouldn't have wanted to live there, but it's interesting to look at, and yeah, it's just fun. And so when Sarah had mentioned that you guys were doing the Cursed first season, maybe only season, depending on how Netflix goes with it, I guess.
Right.
But
and also, if anyone's ever able to film anything again.
Yes, yeah. There's a lot of things in limbo right now, but it just sounded like a grand old time, so I volunteered.
Yeah. Ollie, do you want to remind the listeners who you are for those who, or tell anew for those who might be listening to this as their very first episode?
Yeah, so I'm friends with Sarah for some reason. We used to do, I used to be the co-host of the podcast, but then life got really busy for me and I just didn't have time. But every now and then I'll come back as like special guest episodes. I like to call them the most popular episodes. I have no metrics to back that up. In fact, they're probably listened to by less people, but I'm still going to pretend like, oh, you're getting the Ollie bump. That's what you're doing. Like you're searching for those Ollie-centric listeners. I wanted to do this because, as I said, myself and Sarah are friends, so we still watch stuff together through the medium of the internet at the same time and then text each other where I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm seeing Arthur's butt again. And Sarah's just like, yeah.
Yeah, Arthur,
which is what we do. But when it came to doing an episode, I was like, I don't know if the predominant guest voice on the episode on Cursed should be my cis het white guy voice. So I'm delighted Jillian volunteered to come and talk on it as well, because I think this is, as a series, I think this is way more garnered towards women watchers than male watchers, which is fucking brilliant because usually everything is aimed at people like me. So it's brilliant to see something which is clearly a little bit, I was going to say to the left, but a little bit more feminine leaning, which is great.
I was surprised that the show really did that just because Frank Miller's associated with it. And
yeah, that is not the expectation that I would have had.
Exactly. I have not really thought that he had particularly had warm, squishy feelings about ladies. But
no.
I was interested to see how they adapted it and how, like, whether or not his voice, as I know it, came through.
Right, because he did 300, right?
Yeah, Sin City, 300, The Dark Knight Rises, so whatever the Christopher Nolan Batman's was based on, and Year One.
Yeah, none of those are amazing on gender, so...
There's literally one woman in 300, and she's attempted raped twice.
Yeah, it's not a great look. Yeah, and it's been a really long time since I've seen 300. I think she, like, essentially like, I would consider it rape, but she basically had sex with somebody, like, to get him to, I don't know, not do something awful or do something decent or something like that. I don't know.
Pretty much.
It's
any of the stories that I'm familiar with of his, the women don't really have agency. So
oh no.
It was interesting to see this show that was, headlined by a female character with his name on it.
Can I just do a really quick aside?
Yeah.
We're recording this the day after. I'll leave this in the actual podcast. We're recording this the day after the fandom event for DC, and the trailer for the new Batman, the one with Twilight Robert.
Robert Pattinson,
isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, I haven't seen it.
By the time this comes out, everyone's going to have seen the trailer because it's going to be. I guarantee you, it's going to be huge.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
The new Batman movie is The Crow. The movie The Crow, starring Brandon Lee. The entire trailer, I didn't even realize it was the Batman trailer.
Mm-hmm.
I was sitting watching it. There's all these shots of him with the long hair, doing the moody stuff. And you're like,
there's a lot of rain and eyeliner.
Wet hair, him beating people up and saying, "I am vengeance."
Mm-hmm.
Like, and then at the end, it pops up with the Crow font. It's not even a subtle version of the Crow font. It's the Crow font, and I'm thinking, I'm here for this. I'm all on board. Give me Batman as the Crow. I will watch.
Well, I mean, how many Batmans deep are we at this point? Like,
right.
I have no particular attachment anymore. I have to admit, this will definitely mark where I am in terms of DC fandom, but possibly my favorite Batman is the Batman Brave and Bold series.
Oh yeah.
Which is animated with all of the.
Yeah.
I have not.
I love that. That's my favorite Batman, where Batman eats nachos and does a whole bunch of weird Batman-esque things and has a feud with the dolphin. So that's kind of my favorite Batman. But I'm here for this like emo Crow Batman. I mean, like anybody who gets mad about it, there are 15,000 other Batman movies. Pick one of those. Yeah. Like it's fine.
I mean, I think my favorite Batman is actually Will Arnett's, like, comedically emo Lego Batman, so...
he's pretty great.
Yeah. So, I'm on board, because also Robert Pattinson, the, like, time that I saw him that was not him in Twilight was Robert Pattinson playing Salvador Dali.
Oh, I know that movie.
Yeah, I can never remember what it's called, but it's about the relationship between Salvador Dali, who became a fascist and is kind of trash, and Federico Lorca, who was his best friend and then got murdered by the fascists. And Lorca was definitely gay. Dali, it seems likely that there was some kind of relationship or at least sexual tension between him and Lorca, but that he was like not able to accept that part. Dali was not able to accept that as a part of himself.
Oh, the movie is called Little Ashes, just in case anybody is interested in tracking it down.
Thank you.
The only time I think I've seen him since Twilight is he's in a movie which has a big twist at the end. I don't want to do it. It's called Remember Me. But if you watch that movie and know if you can predict the twist ending to that movie, I will give you 20 grand. Like, just out of pocket right now. I'll just reach it. Not that I have 20 grand in my pocket, but I'll go to a bank, organize some drafts, and give you 20 grand. Because if you've not seen that movie, the last 20 seconds, and it literally is just the last 20 seconds, are the most out there. Oh, it's recontextualized the entire movie. No, it hasn't. It's just put it in a different place.
I just feel like they ran out of, like, plot. And then they were like, okay, this is what we're doing.
Well, I haven't seen it, so now I want to watch it and see if I can make Ollie give me $20,000.
Sarah, there isn't a way in hell any person of sane mind can watch that and actually guess the twist. Like, it does.
We'll see.
There's no nods. There's no hints.
Yeah. Eat your heart out, M. Night Shyamalan.
Right. It's the twist that I call, like, cheating twists, where it's like, okay, like, yes, this is a twist that nobody guessed because you provided no, in any way, hints, actually, for it, so...
Anyway, we better get back to talking about...
Yeah, people didn't sign up for the Robert Pattinson fangirl
So Robert Pattinson is not in this. It stars Katrin Langford as Nimue. The only thing I've seen her in is she was, what is she? She was, I can't remember the girl's name, but she was in Knives Out. She was the...
Meg.
Meg,
Meg.
yes, she was Meg, the student at some vaguely identified small liberal arts college where she had some like feminist eco-criticism major or something like that. It was fun.
The derision in your voice, Sarah.
And
Like feminist
admit,
eco-terrorism.
I will admit, I'm familiar with her from watching 13 Reasons Why. Yes, I watched all 4 seasons, and I yelled at my TV a lot. So,
wait, did you just say there's 4 seasons?
There's 4 seasons. She's only in the first 2, really. I'm a completist and a glutton for punishment. So that's in an effort to not drag us down another path of random riffing. Don't bother. Is all I will say.
I heard the author is like one of those mega douche assholes.
Oh, he's
that's why I never watched it, is because I like by the time I was going to, I would have watched it, I already had heard that the author was trash, and so therefore I was like, okay, I guess I'm not going to watch it now.
Mm-hmm. And that's totally a valid thing. I thought some of the young actors on the show were really good, but oh god, the 4th season just in particular, it's very, very, very bad. I admit I'm a big teen, like, anything that could be on the WB or CW, I will watch. Anything ridiculous. So that's part of the reason I was interested in doing this show. So who else do we have on the cast roster here? Who else was in this show, Sarah?
Devon Terrell, I don't actually know how to pronounce his name, as Arthur. Gustav Skarsgård, so one of the assorted Skarsgård brothers, as Merlin, and Shalom Brune Franklin as Igraine/Morgana.
Can we just go back to Skarsgård there for a second? Well, first of all, let's just brush over the stunt casting of Arthur, which is what I saw written down about 7 million times when the show was announced.
Yeah, so actually I do want to just talk about that briefly, the fact that, so Arthur is cast as a Black actor, as is Morgana, and I've seen a lot of racist comments about that, which are not acceptable, and also, like, A, this show has magic, who cares, and B, also, there were people of color in the Middle Ages, including, like, this is... if you're talking about the real period where Arthur was, like, it's like a Romano-British world or shortly thereafter, and therefore, like, there are, like, people who are from, like, Roman, like, North Africa, like, so there were real people of color in the medieval world, and also there's magic, who cares?
Yeah, the only thing I will say about the casting of Arthur is that he's a very nice-looking young man.
Yes, he is.
They do not do him any favors by giving him a Lionel Richie / Eric LaSalle in Coming to America, sort of like Jerry Curl mullet. Like, his hair
is not good.
His hair is very bad, and he's a nice-looking man. And I'm just like, absolutely, show me all those abs so I don't have to look at the hair. Because I felt bad for the man. I felt like that was, like, willfully trying to... like, ugly him down, maybe? I don't know.
Right,
I think
or give him
he's
this,
a very
like,
nice-looking young man.
I think they were trying to give him a haircut that looked medieval, like, which I say in quotation marks, in a way that is basically also assuming that medieval people are, like, white and have basically straight hair.
Yeah.
And so they were, like, trying to, like, they were like, okay, this seems like a, like, medieval haircut because, like, your natural hair wouldn't be, like, medieval enough.
Yeah, that's the thing. It was very odd looking. Like, I mean, eventually I think they sort of toned it down, and maybe he got a haircut mid-production because I don't remember it being as pronounced. A Jerry curl later on.
It's super ponytailed.
Yeah. Maybe that's what I'm remembering. I just remember being less distracted by it later on. But
just when you mentioned Eric LaSalle, I can't help. Anytime I see him in anything, he's just Dr. Benton from EO.
Oh, 100%.
and he's got the greatest voice in the world. It's like, Dr. Benton. You're like, how can you sound so cool?
I love that. I love the 90s ER. Oh my gosh.
Oh, it's such a good show. But I was going to talk about Gustav Skarsgård because I mentioned this to a friend. I was like, oh yeah, it's got one of the Skarsgård in it. And they said to me, which one?
I said, second hottest one.
Gustav. Yeah, and then she said, this is what she said, oh, the hot one.
No.
And I was there thinking, Poor Alexander. Like, he's not working out those abs 14 hours a day.
Yeah, that's who I would consider the hot Skarsgård.
The what? Alexander? Yeah.
Alexander is what I would consider the hot Skarsgård.
100%. It goes Alexander with his crazy hip flexors. Like, my kid just watched that Tarzan movie, and oh my god, what a thirst trap that thing is. But like,
so my thing that I watched as a completist that I should not have watched all of was True Blood.
Oh.
And he is just gorgeous in that.
Oh yeah. No, he's made for lady ogling. So, but I would say that Gustav's been in a bunch of things. He also seems to not want to be on a show where he can't wear pantaloons. Because he was on Vikings for a number of years as well. But I think of the Skarsgårds, it's Alexander, then it's Gustav, and then it's Bill. Bill is unfortunately he seems nice enough, but he's not the piercing blue eye intense Nordicness that the other two have.
That's fair. Yeah, and also once you think about the fact that Bill Skarsgård played Pennywise the creepy clown, you really can never get away from that in your head, even though it doesn't actually look like him.
Yeah, well, and he was in Hemlock Grove, which was a show about vampires and werewolves on Netflix. As well. And as much as I am a completist, I totally abandoned that show in the middle of an episode because it was very, very bad. So
I watched the first 7 minutes of that show, and because I watched the first 7 minutes, Netflix keeps reminding me that I should finish it.
Oh no!
I was like, no, I've watched 7 minutes of this, and I never.
I know better now.
Yeah, I'm into that sort of stuff. Obviously, that's why I'm doing the podcast, but once you get through the first pre-title sequence of that, if it doesn't grab you, it's the kind of show where it's not going to grab. It's the same as Supernatural. I know loads of people absolutely love it. I can't with Supernatural. There's nothing wrong with it. I'm sure it's brilliant. It's just I know for a fact it's not a show for Ollie Brady.
Mm-hmm.
And yet everybody tells me, oh, it's great and I love it. And I'm thinking, I have no problem with you loving it. I'm not saying it's a bad show. I'm saying it's just not my show. And Hemlock Grove, within 6 or 7 minutes, I was like, yeah, this isn't for me.
Yeah, I watched a few episodes of it. Lily Taylor's there, wearing a cowboy hat and looking morose. And there's a kid from Degrassi, which I will always stand Degrassi because I love it. And I'm Canadian. I feel like that's a bylaw. But yeah, it's a rough go. And I'm realizing we're 20 minutes into recording and we haven't even finished the cast list, or maybe we just barely did. So maybe we should get back on track.
Yeah, there's a much longer cast list. I'm not going to list other people because there's a bunch of other people that I just have never heard of before or seen in anything. So
also, just before we go into this, another reason that we probably won't list the cast list is up front it's spoilery.
Mm-hmm.
To name it, because a lot of people are double dutying character wise, and maybe before we go into the recap, I mean, if you're listening to the podcast, you should know the spoilers a lot, but this is going to spoil the entirety of season 1 of Cursed. So there are a couple of twists, several fairly major twists coming up. So just if you haven't watched it, maybe come back and listen at the end.
Speaking maybe of twists that no one ever could have guessed, one of them's going to come at the end.
That last scene. Oh,
that was brutal.
So with that, we can get into the enumeratio section. Or unless, Ollie, do you want to sing?
Well, you say want to, that's something I want to do. But enumeratio. This is almost so much worse when there's a guest, especially a guest who doesn't know that I do that. So, Sarah, please recap Cursed.
So, very brief recap. Cursed is a reimagining of the Arthurian legends from the perspective of Nimue, who here is portrayed as a young fae girl with magical powers that, even among her own people, seem to be rather more intense than they are used to. After the Red Paladins, who I would describe as, a militaristic arm of the church, wipe out her village in their broader campaign against all of the Fae, she joins forces with a roguish young man who is Arthur, and his sister Morgana, who starts off as a nun, in order to defend the Fae against the church, as well as King Uther, who is sort of ineffectual, but also vaguely a bad guy. Also, Merlin is her bad dad, magic dad, and is usually drunk and usually not wearing a shirt. Did I miss anything big?
If he is wearing a shirt, it's a flowing, open robe shirt.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't call that a shirt. That's like he's wearing no shirt, but he is wearing a jacket.
Yeah. It's the essence of a shirt. But yeah. No, so Nim is supposed to be like a summoner. She has magical powers. And there are two things that drive me crazy about the fact that they refer to her as a sky person, even though like she has nothing to do with the sky. Like,
and none of them do.
She doesn't. Well, no, there are those owl people. Which,
right, but I mean none of her population.
Yeah, but none of her people. Yeah, so she's supposed to be a sky person, even though like when she uses her magical powers, she has leaves pop up on the side of her face. So like, why wouldn't like a tree person or any other name?
Because her magic also seems tree-centric in general, right?
Yeah,
because like that's the big thing that she does is she like makes like trees eat people, which good for her, but
yeah. And then,
Jillian, you said leaves show up on her face, but I mean, surely that couldn't, because that would be a very clear indication that somebody was doing magic, and there's no way you'd be able to hide your magic if your face turned into that of a leaf. Like, I mean, it couldn't possibly be as obvious as this.
It's a slightly prettier, like, Mike Tyson face tattoo coming up the side. Whenever she's like, I'm going to make this tree eat you. But yeah, it's so funny. They treat her like such an outcast. Like she looks like very much the lead of a CW teen show. She's very like pretty in a kind of accessible way, I guess. And but yeah, it's just everybody's like, oh, she's so horrifying, and I'm just like, really? Like
I heard a description of her on by an Irish TV reviewer. And he was like, Catherine Langford as Nimue. It's that girl down the housing estate that you knew in school, but you didn't really talk to. But if you really worked at it, you could. Yeah,
she's the prettiest girl in your junior class in high school.
Exactly.
Like that's the kind of level of attractiveness, which I don't besmirch at all. She's very pretty. But yeah, it was so weird. And then later on they go and they call her the Wolf Blood Witch, which like. I guess it's based on the fact she fights all those wolves, but like nobody else was there for that.
It's also that so she turns people into trees like 12 times in this show. There's one time where she's the one who is mostly the person wielding this sort of power, so Excalibur basically. Mm-hmm. And she's the one basically wielding it because her mother gives it to her and says take it to Merlin, and that's a whole thing. And she kills all of these wolves. And it's like, you kind of get the sense that it's like, yo, I killed these wolves like one damn time, and now everybody's gonna call me the Wolf Blood Witch for like the next year? Like, chill.
Yeah, but also that is definitely because nobody else was there. That was a nickname she had to have started for herself. Like, this kind of like nerdy guy in your friend group who like tries to get everyone to call him the captain or something. Like, it seems very much like a self-generated nickname, because like, why else would anyone know about this?
Because it's presented as like the paladins find all the dead wolves and then are like, it's the Wolf Blood Witch.
Oh, I guess. It just, to me, it struck me as a weird thing. But.
Even with that, like, the Wolf Blood Witch is a cool, it's a bomb-ass nickname. Like,
it is, yeah.
Like, they wouldn't, like, you're coming along, you're like, oh, this person just killed all the wolves and also turned our friend into a tree. But let's just give her this cool nickname, but the Wolf Blood Witch, instead of, as what would generally come from people like that bitch. That's more likely to be what they describe her as opposed to, let's have this cool name. When she has Excalibur, she might as well have a lightsaber.
Yeah.
It's a sword for everyone else. Nimue has it in her hands, and she is cutting those wolves to pieces with it. It's like, wow, it's just passing right through this animal. Cool.
Yeah, like butter.
Mm.
Okay, also, with Excalibur, they made the choice that Excalibur, every time it is wielded, makes like a little noise. which the closed captioning, which I always use because I'm secretly 90, describes as mystical twinkling. And it just ruined it for me. Just after I saw the words mystical twinkling, I'm like, I know what the sword is supposed to be a whole thing, and I just can't take it seriously anymore now that I know it's doing mystical twinkling every time it's wielded.
Yeah, I was telling Sarah about this before we started doing the podcast, but my husband, who used to work at the Renaissance Fair, he worked at the Armory booth. And so he didn't really watch the show with me, but he was sort of passing through while I was watching it, and he got so upset at the way they were handling the sword, because he's like, their finger oil is all over the blade of the sword. Like, what are they doing? It's just such a mess. What like, and he had to leave the room. Like, that was how offended he was by their mishandling of this very famous sword. So it was really weird, though, the amount of times they touched it. Like, considering how it was able to cleave through things really easily, like they were constantly handling it by the blade.
Yeah.
They give it to Arthur at some point, and he does a couple of like twirls with the sword. He's like, "Oh, it's beautifully balanced. Here's a twirl." He's just seen this sword cut through like a block of wood, basically, and he just starts swinging it around. Like any movement, like a millimeter in the wrong direction, he's going to cut off his fingers. And he's just like, "Rrr, rrr, rrr." And then as he's swinging it, it's making that mystical twinkling sound, and he doesn't react to it.
Right.
Like if I picked up a sword and the first thing I do with it is like poke it in front of me, and it goes,
and then it like meows at you.
Yeah, you're going to say to yourself, that is unusual for a sword. Perhaps there's something special about this one. No, he's like, oh, it's just a really nice sword. I should go fight in a tournament with it.
Yeah, that whole subplot, like, I feel like Arthur's character arc is like, he's about to do things and then he never does them. Like, that's kind of, like, I know he's there for man candy reasons, which respect Arthur.
Oh, like, yeah, he is solid man candy.
Oh, yeah, no, he's like I said, gorgeous man, but like, yeah,
Disgusting.
he's always like, I'm about to leave, I'm about to do the thing, I'm gonna do the tournament, and then he just like doesn't do anything.
Right, and at some point he's like, maybe my destiny is just to follow you around, Nimue, and it's like, okay, I guess that's convenient, as that your destiny is to follow around the woman you want to sleep with. Like, good for you. That makes it also easy.
That's the kind of boyfriend you want to run from. It's like, oh, right? I'm not going to have any interests of my own. I'm just going to follow you around all the time. That won't grate on your nerves at all.
Nope. So, okay, the other thing I want to discuss in terms of Excalibur as just a general theme is, so at first Excalibur is just like, it's a really great sword and she can do everything with it and it's magic and that's very nice. Then, so her brother tells her to take the sword to Merlin, and then she ends up meeting Merlin, and it turns out Merlin is really her dad, which I predicted 3 episodes before. And yeah.
The show has like a history of like doing dramatic pronouncements that you already knew were coming. Like they tried to hide the fact that Ingrain or Morgana was Arthur's sister, and legitimately when I started taking notes, I just wrote Arthur's sister because I knew that was coming. Like,
right. I think I actually forgot that was a reveal.
The second black character is introduced.
Yes, exactly. It's like this isn't a show nuanced enough to not have all the black characters be related.
Although having said that, it is great that Ingrain renamed Morgana,
which is such a weird misdirect too. Is like you're thinking it's like it's a Igraine, and you're like, wait, that's Arthur's mother. That's weird. And then she's like, don't worry about it. People just call me Igraine, but my real name is Morgana. What? Why bother?
It's such a weird thing to say. Is like, oh yeah, no, that was my grandmother's name. That people just always call me Igraine after my grandmother, but my name is Morgana. You're like, okay,
that's not how names work.
Like, why? Like, if she'd have met her and said, or Morgana, like they're working on the cachet that people watching this know a certain amount about Arthurian legend. So having her identified as Igraine, then to at the end of the exact same, it's either the same episode or the next episode, it's revealed that no, actually my real name's Morgana. you're not getting a double hit there. It's just
right.
Why did I just spend 2 episodes with this person being called a grain? If you'd have called her Morgana at the beginning, I'm still going to go, oh, that's going to be Morgana.
Right.
Like, you don't need 2 episodes of, oh, maybe I'm friends with her. She's nice. But what I was going to say is, I do appreciate the fact that she is a woman of color who's also a lesbian in this series.
No, she was legit my favorite character. Like, she had the most interesting stuff going on. The actress, I would say, is probably the best one in the main cast, as it were.
Yeah, I thought she was really good.
She was so good. I really liked the way
they did that. Yeah. But I thought that was really well done, that they just, like, have, like, casually, like, she's in a relationship with one of the other nuns, and it's, like, it's not something that is considered to be officially acceptable, but it's emphasized that, like, Nimue doesn't care, and the show also, I mean, so we kind of hinted at this before, the show is honestly, surprisingly, considering some of the people behind it, does not at all feel male gazy, and even to some extent, I think really feels like there's a major female gaze emphasis.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that I think is interesting about that is that, like, it's a scene where you have these 2 women kissing that is not, I think, at all presented as something that you're supposed to find titillating, as opposed to a, like, nice romantic moment.
What I really appreciated about that scene was that, well, first of all, there's 2 girls kissing. But the other thing that I really appreciated...
Way to bring the male gaze, Ali.
Oh, sorry, just get rid of it there, Sarah. It's about time that men had their time to speak. But what I really appreciated about it was that the 2 girls kiss. Morgana Igraine goes after Nimue because she's worried that she's going to reveal her secret. But from Nimue's point of view, so our POV character, she's embarrassed that she had walked in on that private moment. She's not angry. She's not, I'm going to go give away your secret. She's like, oh, sorry for intruding. Don't be mad at me that I watched you with your friend. Which is how a real human would actually interact with that. To be like, oh, sorry, I had 2 friends around the other day, and as they were leaving, they were kissing in the hall just out behind me. And I walked around the corner, and I was like, oh, turn and go back. I don't need to see that. And it's just a perfectly natural thing for somebody to be a little bit awkward when they see 2 people that they don't really know.
Like making out in a corner, then you're like, oh, okay, I feel like I shouldn't be here. I'm going to take off.
I do appreciate, too, that they headed it off right away. Like, she was very clear, like, oh, I have no intention of outing you. Like, there wasn't, like, weird drama around that. It was just like, no, that's your person, and it's all cool. Don't worry about it. Like, that was good.
Even the worst character in the series, stroke maybe best character if she's really effective what she does, but Iris, the other little nun, who is, I hate her. Even it's implied that she isn't going to out them. It's almost implied as if she's got a little bit of jealousy towards Morgana and the other girl whose name I can't remember.
Celia.
Celia?
Yeah.
The most Catholic white woman name that you could possibly imagine.
Right, and because Iris also, like, Iris clearly has, like, is just, like, she just at least, like, she has bigger fish to fry. Like, she cares about this whole war against the faith thing. Like, these 2 nuns making out is just, like, she's like, whatever, like, that's, like, small potatoes. Like, I don't have to worry about that.
Uh-huh.
As far as, like, morality and all of that goes from her perspective.
Mm-hmm.
We did pull you off talking about Bad Dad, Magic Dad. You were about to go down that road.
So I wanted to talk about the sword. So she has this whole thing with Merlin. And Merlin reveals to her that he is her father. We see her mother, Lenore, literally, like, pull the sword out of his body, which is a thing. He also then shows the 2 of them having sex to his daughter, which is a poor parenting choice. And then
at that point he has no magic, so that's just him trying to show off his big dick energy. Like,
right?
I feel like let me regain some, like, semblance of, like, authority here by, like, shaming you into watching this. Or maybe he thought, like, well, I need to show her that I am actually her father, so the moment of conception is, like, really important.
This is when you squirted out of my dick, kid.
Oh, stop, Sarah. But there's one thing I want to go back to is the show starts with Nimue in water with blood coming out of her, and then it cuts to her face, and then goes back to the past. So it's like a real record scratch. How did I end up here? Kind of moment.
I think I forgot that was the beginning.
Yeah.
Well, I only remembered it was the beginning because I rewatched the first episode earlier.
No, it's very much I bet you're wondering how I ended up in this pool surrounded by blood, and like we're supposed to be talking about Arthurian legend.
Well, it all starts with how everybody in my village was mean to me.
It's also so it really does start with people being mean to her, like other people in the village being like dicks, basically. And even with that, I'm looking at her going, she seems friendly. Like she comes walking into the village and everyone else is going about their job. Like the regular townsfolk don't seem like they're going, oh my god, there's that witch. It's like they're just doing their stuff. She's chatting to the kid, the most annoying kid in.
Oh yeah, they had to put a little moppet in there.
God, I hate that kid. The only reason I said that Iris isn't the most annoying definitively is because I hate that kid so much.
Yeah, I did not understand his purpose, but sure.
Oh, his purpose is to be, the little kids can watch him too. Like, no.
Well, so every show needs to have an unreasonably precocious child.
Yeah, he's the cousin Oliver of this show, is really what he is. But yeah, it's so weird too, because they talk about like, oh, she's such an outcast. But then immediately you see her talking to people. Like, she has Squirrel to hang out with. She has her best friend, Pim, who again is another character that I don't know why she exists. But
to connect them with the Vikings, who also don't have a point.
Yeah, she has. Well, they had to have hot sea goths. That's what they needed for the show to be successful. But yeah, it's just so weird. They're talking about her like she's such an outcast, but she has a whole posse of people. So I don't know. That was very weird.
She seems like she's fine. And she has this big chip on her shoulder about her mother, who seems like she's perfectly nice and very loving and accepting.
But that's teen girls for you, to be fair.
True. I will give you that one. Right. No, that's fair. I'll give you that one. But yeah, okay. So then after like she learns that, Merlin's her bad dad, magic dad, and all of that, and that he can't, do magic anymore because he doesn't have the sword, she then like sneaks this vision of Merlin back when he wielded the sword and he was like bloodthirsty and mean. And then we introduce for the first time, and it's what, like 6 episodes in? Yes, this is episode 6. And she's been wielding this sword for the last 5 episodes. And here for the first time we introduce, no, the sword is dangerous. It will make you evil. And it's just this like, okay, so the sword is like the One Ring. We get it. It like makes you a jerk. But it just comes completely out of nowhere. And then all of a sudden, within like a minute, she's like, I can feel the sword's effect on me. It's making me an asshole now. And it's like, okay, why wasn't it making you an asshole like last episode? Oh, right, because we hadn't introduced that plot point yet.
Show, babe.
The way that stuff ratchets up in this series. So just for the record, before you go on, because I think we've all 3 of us have been throwing a little bit of shade at the thing. I really enjoyed this season. And
it was a lot of fun.
Sarah did as well, and I'm sure Jillian did too. So if we're being critical of it, it's not because we didn't like the show. I'm all on board for a second season.
Oh yeah, I would definitely watch more.
But the way that the story in this is written is so many bizarre choices.
Yeah.
So we mentioned Vikings there for a second. The Vikings are a huge subplot that get given maybe 2 minutes per episode.
It's very weird because they have them show up through the Pym storyline, if I recall correctly. That's where they first appear.
Right, because she ends up on the Viking ship because she's hooking up with one of the Viking dudes.
No, well, she's not even hooking up. It's this very chaste. It's this Viking that looks like modern day Alex Winter from Bill and Ted. Like the one who's not Keanu Reeves. He very much looks like him. I think he's
more handsome than
Alex for sure. I'm just saying, like...
I was going to say it's the Viking who seems like he could have been played by the other by Alexander Skarsgård.
Oh, yeah, sure. No,
this curiously handsome guy.
Maybe it was because because I just watched Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure before, but he struck me as a very Alex Winter. Like, if he'd been wearing a half shirt, it would have been, like, perfection. But
oh, sorry, when you said modern day, I thought you meant as in from 2020. But yeah, he looks like Alex Winter in Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure.
Yeah, like,
yes.
I feel like he does. So, like, there's she's on the Viking ship, and then, like, yeah, it's kind of a contrivance to introduce another character, really.
Right.
But, yeah, it's just, I did not understand what Pym was there for. And I'm fine with her having another friend. Although, something I actually thought about while I was watching, I'm like, I wonder how different the show would have been if she were Nim. Just because she has a less conventional look to her, and like I feel like she would have brought a different energy to it. Like I like that actress just fine, but I didn't know what she was doing or why we cared that she was there.
Her character is never fleshed out beyond I am Nim's friend.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's also she has this whole bit where she's sort of comic relief, where she's tasked as being the healer for the Vikings because she's Fae and Fae are healers, which seems like a vaguely racist thing that people think. And then she's like, we see a lot of her just like trying to like rip arrows out of large people and getting drunk while doing so, and like like going back and forth between like pouring the liquor on people's wounds and like swigging it, and it's this kind of comic bit, and then it like swings into this like tragic bit because she's got this dude and he like gives her his medallion that keeps him safe, and it's like, okay, so he's giving it to her now, so that means he's gonna die, and sure enough, there he goes.
Yeah, well, and also too, they did the thing where they made her go on like the land party with them at one point, which is like, why is she even there? Because she's supposed to be healing them, but like, you know, then there was that comic relief thing of like, oh, there's the tiny girl carrying the big sword, and then like they immediately get attacked. And
it's the problem with that is it gets to the point where, so as I said, there's maybe a minute and a half with Pym in each episode where she's hanging out with these Vikings. We don't see them doing raids. We just see her doing medic stuff.
That would cost too much if we had to see
them exactly. They don't have the budget.
Exactly. So we can't see the battle. Then they decide, but it's implied that this has happened over a series of months because when Viking Alex Winter dies, Ted, no, he's Bill, yeah. So when Bill dies, he's like, my Pym, and she's all sad and crying, and you're like, oh, were they meant to be in love or something?
Yeah, I didn't know.
But what really got me about the Vikings is they're all horrible, they're all disgusting, except for one beautiful man, and then the leader of them, who is the most strikingly attractive woman.
Oh yeah, she is like, gorgeous.
She was hot, yeah.
Sir, why is she so clean and perfect with amazing skin? Why does he?
But
look
she just
like
has a lot of like
model?
punk piercings,
yeah,
right?
Punk piercings, yeah. But I mean, there's nothing wrong with punk piercings and stuff.
Yeah, she's just like a hot goth lady.
Short on one side, long on the other side, curly hair. Sarah A. Thicker, which is
that's true. I have Red Spear's haircut. Score.
You have Red Spear's haircut, but what we gotta get is these two were perfect, and then everyone else was like, "Oh, I'm a monster Viking person." So clearly they were going to be important characters, but we don't get any time with them. Like I couldn't tell you what Red Spear is other than warrior woman who at the end kills another warrior woman who looks exactly like her.
Yeah, I thought they were sisters. And
I thought they were the same person.
Yeah, you were like, wait, why? I thought Red Spear was on the other side. And I was like, yeah. And then it wasn't until the two of them were facing each other that I'm like, oh, that's not Red Spear. That's a different lady.
Yeah, no, I will say, like I was saying before, that Morgana is my favorite. And I kind of, like, my hope for season 2 is that she and Red Spear cross paths. And also Kaze, who was like, that I think she was a cat woman. Like that was the impression I got from her weird Halloween teeth that they had her wearing. And she came from like a matriarchal society of cat people, which I'm down. Please show me that. But like I want the three of them to team up in like a Gotham Siren Birds of Prey kind of way and just go around kicking butt. Like that's what I want out of this show. Like
She comes straight from Black Panther. She might as well be guarding T'Challa or T'Challa.
Well, we were talking about this before about like some of the the Fae people who have the visible physical attributes, and how they are mostly played by people of color, and how like that's sort of a weird thing in a way. Like
right, and the Fae that are human passing are mostly white.
Yeah.
We should maybe talk about the different Fae actually.
Okay.
So we mentioned that we have Leaf Girl, whose only Fae characteristic is that when she's actively doing magic, she has a slightly glowing green leaf kind of motif on the side of her face.
Which even that, if you wore like a heavy cloak, you could probably, like if you wore like a hood, you could hide.
Wear like a headband.
If anything, it makes her prettier. Like it's weird. It's whatever way they do the lighting when she's doing that magic thing. It's like the extra color to her face because she's so pale. Like that's like when people were talking about how that Arthur was played by a person of color. Like Katrin Langford is whiter than I am, and I'm the whitest human in existence. So it's like when she gets this color, it's like, oh, what? She looks more natural and normal now. Like it's great. But as we were talking before, like the antler people have antlers. Like you can't hide
right.
That. Yeah. The snake people. What?
Oh my god! So
they have this like face
people?
That looks like scales, kind of.
Yeah, no, but it's very poorly done. Maybe it's just my TV. I don't know. Maybe they didn't shoot it in a way that they thought it would be viewed in high def. But the very first time I saw them, because of their weird scaly hairlines, I thought they were Frankenstein people. Like it just was this weird hairline mesh situation where I was like, "What is happening? Like this looks bad."
I was thinking it looked like they were like stone or something. I didn't get snake at first either.
It came across like grayscale from Game of Thrones.
Exactly. That's what they look like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then there were I have to bring this up because like, oh my god. So at one point there's an owl lady who I think her name is Yeva.
Right.
And like, oh my gosh, the whole look of that character. One, why is she not called the Sky Person? Because bird. And two, it very much seems like the costumer saw the 2019 film of Cats and then was like, what if cats but birds? Because I half expected like Jason Derulo to jump in from off screen with wings shouting his own name. Like
Jason Derulo.
Like it's
now I'm a fae.
It was so weird, and like I felt weird because like honestly the owl lady is the one who looks most like an animal. Like they're the people with the horns and you know people with scales and stuff, but like
people who have wings.
Looks like full on wings. Like it's a whole look.
Right.
So
the weird thing about the horn people is that there seems to be different groups within that.
Yeah.
Because you've got
there's a variety of horns.
Yeah, it's like, look at these gigantic antlers, they're clearly deer people.
Yeah.
And then later on there's a siege happening, and the leader of the Fae in the siege has what can only be described as like goat horns, like tied to his skull, goat horns. And you're like, wait, why is he a slightly different version of the same group?
Yeah, they didn't really get into it well enough that I even understood like who was part of what faction or where they came from or any of that.
Right. And that then also, so now I'm going to get into one of the kind of big spoilers. So one of the major antagonists are these Red Paladins, these churchy people. And their big fighter is this gentleman called the Weeping Monk.
Oh my god, yeah, I referred to him as Gerard No Way all the way through because he looks very emo with all of his eyeliner and his like mercurial mood things. Like it was never clear to me what his deal was.
Right, so he has this like emo looking like what looks like this basically like eyeliner ending in like a tattoo that makes it look like he's like crying black tears all of the time basically, which is like a real look. And toward the end, Gawain, who is the Green Knight, which is another whole thing that I have feelings about in terms of Arthurian adaptations, like just sees him and he's like, oh yeah, you're Fae, you're ash folk. And it's like, if you just know that, like, why didn't everybody know that?
Yeah.
But that's the thing is there's so many little threads which are just left. Like, for example, we talk about the Weeping Monk. The Weeping Monk gets into several sword fights. He's a god with a sword. Like,
right.
He's just cutting people down. He's not breaking sweat, except for that one point near the end where he needed Squirrel to come out and cheer him on, so he could, which we'll get to. But there's a bit where he cuts down like 10 of these gold-faced warriors, then gets a little bit tired and is losing to 6. Like, so he beats 10, then is losing to 6. Squirrel comes out and goes, "You can do it, Mr. Ashface, man. I believe in you." And then he just cuts them down in a matter of seconds. You're like, "You're right. I could do it. Thank you."
I forgot. I'm the best swordsman in this entire show.
But he clearly has, like, preternatural agility, right?
Yeah.
He doesn't seem to be able to display emotions like a normal human being. He came out of nowhere. He's a zealot. And yet no other paladin has any questions about him.
Right.
The guy who comes from the Pope has no questions about him. He's clearly different.
Well, and it's clear that Father Cardin knows, but does anybody else know?
No, nobody else knows, because that's kind of laid out. Cardin kind of threatens him with...
I kind of got the weird impression that Cardin had, like, adopted him in a way. Because I believe he called him father at one point, like, in a way in a way that to me read as, like, a familial greeting. But, like, I feel like maybe Cardin picked him up during a raid and then realized that he could harness his powers, but like that's not clear in any way.
Because he can smell other fae, and it does kind of indicate in that scene at the end that he like kept him because he could do that he kept him alive, and then also that like their whole relationship is like basically just Stockholm syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's actually kind of the same as Thanos with Gamora and Nebula. It's actually the exact same relationship. Yeah,
it's similar. The only issue that I have with that is when we're introduced to Cardin, he's killing a child.
Right!
It's like, here's Cardin, here's the red things, and he's sitting with a little boy, and he's like, sometimes even the children need to go. And then it cuts off screen, and it's clear Cardin has just murdered this kid. Yeah.
So he doesn't save him because he's a kid. He saves him because he figures out that he has this thing that's useful. But like, are there no other children that have things that can be useful? Why doesn't he have this like little like mini army of like Stockholmed Fae warriors? Like,
it's like in the X-Men where Magneto was recruiting like other children of ability.
Right.
Like, it does sort of seem like he could have a whole army of like pyros and whatnot following behind him to his own use.
Right.
But I don't know.
Yeah.
I think we're skipping a couple of major things. So Nimue turns a guy into a tree. But he doesn't die because his friends cut him out.
Not right away.
And during this time she's escaped from the Paladins. Because what happens is the Paladins are going around killing all the Fae, and they attack her village. She escapes, and she goes and hides in, I was going to say a monastery, but it's not, a nunnery. And she hides.
Either term is acceptable, by the way, because sometimes you actually, because in medieval studies scholarship, at least, like people often refer to like women's monasteries and like women's monasticism, and monasticism is like a catch-all term.
So she runs and hides in a convent, which is where she meets Morgana, who's a nun, because she was sold because Arthur's dad had debts, and when he died, the debts passed on to the child, even though Arthur was clearly like 13 in these things. So he sold his sister to the nuns.
Well, I don't think willingly, but yeah.
No, but I'm not saying it was. Yeah, it wasn't like, haha, get out of here.
Right.
It was like to take her off the family's, like, you know, she's not going to be a burden on the family anymore, financially or whatever. So she's there, but she's obviously still friends with Arthur, or still talks to Arthur or whatever. But Nimue's hiding out there. The monk gets brought to the nunnery and the convent, monastery, and she has to try and treat him for his injuries while also pretending that she's not the wolf blood witch or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when Father Carden gets in and she meets Father Carden and we get Iris and all this stuff. And it's just...
And Iris is the one who, like, gives her away, right? Because Iris is like, there was another girl. She's missing.
Oh, God, I hate... Just, can we talk about Iris for a second?
Oh, my God.
Oh, she's the worst.
Really good at what she's doing. And what she's doing is making you hate every second that she exists.
Yeah, so she fucking burns down the monastery because she knows that, like, some of the nuns were, like, helping Nimue. So she's like, fuck this. And, like, does, like, a cleansing fire and murders, like, 40 people. And then goes to the paladins and is like, can I be a paladin? And they're like, no, we don't take ladies. And then she's like, how can I change your mind? And they're like, I don't know, murder the wolf blood witch. And she's like, awesome, I'm gonna do that.
It is just, I don't know where they're going with the character, because I don't know who in Arthurian legend she is meant to represent. Whereas when everybody else that shows up, and Sarah knows that I love my Arthurian legend, and I know she loves it too, I cannot place who Iris is meant to be. For a long time, I thought maybe there was going to be some trick that Iris is just her nun name, because they often take names when they become nuns. And that we're going to find out that her name is Moradin. You know what I mean? Like something like that, like or whatever. But at the minute, I just don't understand who she's meant to be a stand-in for. Right.
I was thinking, like, are they going with a Mordred kind of thing? But like maybe that's going to be her nickname. So, because she's the one who kills Nimue. Which, or at least, I think it's unclear if Nimue's, like, long-term or temporary dead, but, like, she shoots her at least, and she falls into the water, and it's all bloody. Which feels super unearned, because until that point, she just feels like this, like, annoying side plot. And then it's like,
anytime she showed up, it was like, why are you here again? Like, the part where she was suddenly with Squirrel, and they were doing, like, archery, and I was thinking, okay, like, is this actually going to mean, like, their plots, like, intersect, or she changes him and adapts him to the cause, or, like, something? Like, is this interaction for anything? No. But it really didn't seem like it. It was like, oh, well, we haven't seen this actress in, like, 2 episodes, so I guess we'll throw her in here. Like, it was
justify that she knows how to shoot arrows.
I guess so, yeah. But
right?
It was weird.
Yeah. Yeah, spoiler alert. She's the one who kills Nimue, which just feels super unearned. And then because of that, the Pope, like, accepts her into his fancy gold-faced guards. And I think that's the last scene, is, like, Iris, like, putting on her fucking gold mask. And it's like, what? So, like, they're setting her up that she's, like, the main villain, but, like, I don't understand why we care.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't care. And also, the gold masked killers, or the gold master, think Swiss Guard, because they're the Pope's, like, private little army, right?
But they're much cooler looking.
They're way cooler than Swiss Guard, because they don't have the little hats. Sorry, Swiss Guard. But
and the, like, multicolored uniforms. Like, the image they project is not badass.
Yeah. But so she joins them, but they are lined up as being, like, these super warriors, because everyone is, like, afraid of them. And then Iris comes walking down that thing at the end, and she looks like a 7-year-old child.
Yeah, no,
wearing a gold mask.
She totally looked to me like, I think the actress's name is Isabel Fuhrman. She was in that movie Orphan, where it was like an adult woman pretending to be a child. And, well, shades of this, I guess, because she's supposed to be really young. But yeah, it was so weird. She was so wee.
Yeah, but no, I just don't get her as a character and why they made her so important. I just don't understand that as a choice.
There is one other thing that really stood out to me, is that she joined. So basically, Nimue escapes from the convent, goes to stay with the Fae. There's a Fae resistance. They're going to fight back against Uther, who we haven't really mentioned, and the Red Paladins, who are working with Uther at this time. And Morgana is there as a kind of a leader, despite the fact that she's not Fae herself, which is strange because they really don't seem to like Arthur because of his non-Faeness.
But she seems to head the resistance, like the Underground Railroad for the Fae, right? That was my understanding of her role. So she was helping shepherd people to this promised land that they're hiding in.
Right, like she's demonstrated real allyship as opposed to Arthur, who just like fucking shows up and is following Nimue around.
Yeah.
But in relation to the Iris thing, Iris is in the group meetings with Morgana, and Morgana doesn't recognize Iris at any stage.
Right? Maybe that's because she's spider possessed.
Especially, it could be, yeah, but it's also because like Celia, Morgana's girlfriend, dies. Like she is killed in the destruction of the convent.
Yeah, Iris killed her.
Yeah, so Iris killed her, and yet, so you would think Morgana would at least see her, spot her, recognize her, and go, sorry, what actually happened in my convent? But it never, that scene never occurs. And as you said, maybe it's because a spider, but no, that the spider comes afterwards when they make the badass girl group to go off, where I just assumed that two of them were going to die.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
I was so worried in this group of, like, one white woman who's the main character and two women of color. I'm like, fuck. And they both survive, and I was very happy and relieved about that.
I was so happy about that. I was very stressed, like, especially when they had Kaze talk about, like, where I'm from. And I'm like, oh, no, is this going to be, like, your disclosure of who you are as a person, and then you're going to be brutally murdered? Because I feel like that's where we're going.
Yeah. And especially because that is what they do with the one of the black man who goes with Gawain and Arthur.
Oh yeah,
that guy Bergeron. Yeah, and except for Arthur, of course, but like he's I think the only other named black male character, and he like dramatically dies to make everyone sad.
My favorite thing about Cassie is she punks out Arthur. When Arthur's suggesting that he goes with Nimue, and he's like, oh, she'll need me for protection or whatever, and she just looks at him and she's got her spear and she's like, pfft.
Oh yeah,
I mean, just it's clear like you think you're more protection than me. Not a chance. Son.
Can we just, as an aside, the whole thing where the troop of Arthur and Gawain go to protect the granary, like. Just for a logic's sake, so Squirrel shows up in the middle of this, and then he sneaks his way in, and then they're like, block where he came in, and I'm like, wait a minute, no! Like, why don't you go and investigate how he came in unseen, and then go out that way? But, like, apparently they're just going to make a last stand in the granary, and it really annoyed me. Anyway, I'm sorry. We weren't talking about that. We were talking about something else.
Well, we can talk about that in the granary, and how it's... right, so Gawain, who's introduced as the Green Knight,
I hate
and
that.
I know Sarah is going to talk about that. I hate it so much. But the greenness to his knighthood is that he's got one shoulder guard in his mix-match set of armor, which happens to be slightly green.
It looks like it just like somebody took some like green paint from the hardware store and painted this one damn plate of his armor green. It looks awful.
Yeah. And so from Arthurian legend, right? Gawain is the best swordsman. He's the best fighter. That's literally his entire purpose in that series, is that when he finally comes up against the Green Knight, he has difficulty in defeating the Green Knight, but he does. Gawain's function in this story is to be a dick, to act like a dick, and then to lose a fight to the Whispering Monk.
And also, like,
the Weeping Monk, sorry.
And
the Whispering Monk is a way cooler name.
Right. And also to introduce this weird bit where Arthur is like anxious and they have toxic masculinity fights because Arthur worries that he's competition for Nimue's affections. And then as they're taking this stupid last stand, Arthur's like, wait, before we go out, I need to know, are you in love with Nimue? And Gawain's like, we don't fucking have time for this. And Arthur's like, just tell me. And he's like, no, I feel like I see her as a sister. Like, don't worry about it. And Arthur's like...
And also where he looks at him and goes, no, I'm clearly a 45-year-old man.
Yes!
She's 17.
Yes! And
what are you even talking about, you goddamn
right.
nuts?
And he's like, Arthur, you can like marry her 5 times. I don't care. Just like, please shut up and let us fucking do this.
It's such a childish thing that Arthur comes up with. But even before that, Arthur, who has been a mercenary, is like, oh, you know, when we go on this attack thing, we're about to go walking through the woods. Maybe we should send a scout. And then just from, as you said, sheer toxic masculinity, Gawain goes, no, we're all going to go. You're like, even if you had never been in a battle before in your life, surely you would understand, send one person up just to check we're not going to get ambushed.
But
as opposed to, let's all walk into the
I think they were using that as like a misdirection, because at that point, Arthur and that young man that was kind of, they seemed to be setting him up. They seem to be setting up as like Arthur's disciple or his guy, the guy who had the badger hat.
Squire.
I'm forgetting what his name was, but the little badger hat boy. Maybe I'm trying to.
Sarah sent me a message. He came on screen, and I had been complaining about Squirrel, and Sarah said, "Well, at least we have somebody who's more annoying than Squirrel." And then there's a ... in the message, and she goes, "Bet you any money he's dead before the end of the
Yup.
Oh yeah.
And I was right.
But yeah, like that was so crazy. Like I feel like that them going off as a group instead of sending like a scout was a way to like misdirect, because you think, oh well, they're gonna get sieged maybe, and then Arthur and Badger Hat will be the only ones left.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, like Badger Hat does he get an arrow through the throat like Kevin Bacon in Friday the 13th style? Like it was pretty. He died like almost immediately, and he was so looking forward to this, and it was very weird.
Right. Well, Arthur, by the way, dodges an arrow.
Yeah. Matrix style.
I hate when they have that bit.
I hate all of that
I
stuff.
hate that trope. But like, you're not Neo in the Matrix, dude.
He's not Neo even in the Matrix Reloaded.
Oh.
The other thing that I wanted to talk about is the subplot involving Merlin.
There's
where
so
Merlin
many
no longer has magic, because Merlin's magic was based around the fact that he had Excalibur hidden in his body.
Right. So
he can only do magic through Excalibur is what I'm getting. But Excalibur's been taken out of his body for at least 15 years, so he's been, or however old Nimue is, so he's been pretending to be a magician and reading the signs and getting drunk for as long as Nimue's been alive.
Which honestly, props
to him for getting away with it.
Yeah.
It's just weird that he's did it. But first of all, what I want to get across is, one, when I say he had the sword hidden in his body, it's inside his body. The sword is about 5 feet long, and he at some point has the scar the whole way down his body. How would he have walked?
It's magic.
Because
it's magic. Don't worry about it.
His hip, he couldn't have sat down. He's got a sword that's 5 feet long through his body. But he then also goes to this king of the lepers.
Oh my God, Ruby Eye Guy.
Yup.
Yeah, Ruby Eye Guy, to get Rugen, I think his name is, to get help, because he's trying to track down Nimue, because he needs to get the sword off her. Not because he wants the magic, but because he wants to save her from the One Ring, which the sword is now representing.
Right. As we introduce several episodes in, and that's the first time you see any sign that it's negatively affecting her.
You never see that mentioned until like episode 7. Rugen has the body of Boudica.
Yep.
Just
chilling.
Like, again, here's some more King Arthur related stuff. There we go. No explanation of how it happens. He manages to escape with an invisibility horse.
What?
Yeah.
I thought he stole the fire of the Fae.
Yeah, he stole the fire of the Fae, and then the widow gives him the magic horse, right?
Oh,
yes.
The horse.
And then there's like this invisible horse. He's like, oh, my invisible, like, horse, show up. And the horse shows up. And he's like, yeah, I can escape these guys now. And then they, like, so this is all happening as like side plot.
Right.
Like, what is he up to? So he's got the Fae fire. He is at odds now with Uther, because Uther's realized that he doesn't have any magic. He's just been spoofing for the last 15 or 16 years or whatever. Uther is making a deal with the Vikings, and it turns out that Uther is not actually the real king, because he has no actual claim, because he's an illegitimate son, because the queen mother's actual child had died in childbirth.
They pulled a baby
switched him
switcheroo. It's very soap opera like.
Right now, right?
Yeah.
Baby switcheroo.
So they stole the baby, and there's this, like, they're going to go and find her, and they're going to prove who it was, or whatever the story happens to be. And then there's like, Rugen has sent an assassin to kill
the fish guy, the fisherman.
Yeah.
He's a fisherman, and he's going to kill Merlin. He eventually catches Merlin. He has him banged to rights, and for some reason, because everything up until this point, this guy who's been in the background just going around killing people has shown no emotion, hasn't talked, hasn't shown any interest in having any sort of thing, suddenly decides he wants to stop to have a conversation with Merlin as he's about to die.
Well, because he adds in this whole thing like, yeah, I mean, you know, I got paid for this, but I would have done it for free because of, like, what you did to my father. And it's like, what did he do to his father? We don't know, and nor do we care.
We don't know who you are, dude, so don't say what you did to my father. We don't know.
Like, what is that? Like, it's just such an unnecessary, like, introduction of this theoretical side plot that, like, never gets explained. It's so weird.
It is exactly what happens with the Red Viper of Dorne when...
But that, at least, that was built up as a plot, though.
And it makes sense. He's looking for a confession because he doesn't even really care about... I was going to call him
Tyrion.
The Mountain, right? He doesn't care about that. He wants a confession related to Cersei. Like, he doesn't want a confession from the Mountain. The Mountain's nothing to him. He wants to lead it. That makes sense. And in the TV show, it's brilliantly done. In this, it's here's this backstory that nobody knows about, couldn't possibly know about, because the fisherman is only in 2 scenes. Right. And in both of them, it's just him walking away from dead bodies.
Yeah.
But now he wants to editorialize about how you're a bad guy, Merlin.
But that's I'd say the biggest issue that I have with the show is that they tell us a lot of things, but they don't show us a lot of things.
Right.
So, like, they try to imbue, like, a certain amount of gravity to things that, like, we don't know anything about that. Like, why would we care?
Yeah.
That's part of the thing that I think that really hurts the show.
Yeah.
As much as there are parts of it I enjoyed, it's just like, well, I don't feel emotionally connected to this character or their journey because I don't really know what their journey is. So if they die, they die. Like,
yeah, it's also that it feels like there's so much behind the scenes world building, which is fine. I don't think it's a bad thing for the author to have, like, come up with motivations for characters that then, you know, don't actually get delved into in detail. But I feel like you have to do one or the other. Like, I feel like it feels like it's this, like, index card thing that, like, somebody had, like, written down, like, whatever his name is definitely wants to kill Merlin because, like, Merlin murdered his father or whatever. And then they're like, we have to get this in somehow. Like, we have to mention this detail. And it's like, you don't, though, because it doesn't add anything. And so it's a lot of this just, like, somebody did this work of world building and they have to mention things related to that regardless of whether it contributes to the plot.
Or it feels like they maybe, like, put a bunch of character names and plot points into a hat and then just pulled them out. And they're like, okay, so that's what we're doing here. Like, we haven't really talked about Uther very much, aside from the fact that he's a baby that was stolen effectively to secure a position on the throne. But, you know,
for his mother, who is very evil.
Yes. Yeah, she's very...
His mother, who's just practicing poisons.
Yeah.
Right?
All the time.
Like, that's just her thing, is she's just, like, locked up alone in a room and is practicing how to poison people.
And then she unassumingly eats something from him and gets poisoned. I'm like, how did you not see that coming? But
right? Like, come on!
But, like, so I don't know Arthurian legend as well as either of you, but what I do know is that Uther, in a lot of historical texts, is supposed to be Arthur's father?
Yep.
Yes.
Which, like, he is obviously not in the show because they look comparable in age. And yeah, he looks like a bargain basement Orlando Bloom. Like, he's just I guess there's some purpose in having him, but like he was so mealy mouthed and like
right.
I didn't, Oh, and he cries like Dawson Leary too. He is not a good crier, this man. Like at one point he cries, I think, after his mother tells him that he was stolen from his real family.
Right.
Or she confirms that he was stolen from his real family. And he does some Dawson Leary style crying, and yeah, I never cared when he showed up. I was just sort of like, okay, let's get back to the people I care about. Like, this is filler.
Right.
The worst thing about Uther and his mother, who it basically is meant to be Eleanor of Aquitaine from the way she's presented, is that like she's this powerful, strong, intelligent woman, and here's this weak king who is her son.
It's a very Eleanor-John dynamic.
Yeah, they pull away from that so strongly in the last episode.
Yeah.
They minimize her. So for the first 4 episodes, she gets a certain amount of screen time. Then she disappears from 3 because it's almost like the writers were like, oh, well, I mean, we're making this woman too interesting.
People are going to want to know things about her.
People are going to want to know about her. So let's just have her show up, tell him where he's acting like a spoiled teenager, and then she's acting like a teen mom even. Well, I never wanted you anyway. Like that's the level that we're at. And then it's just like murder time for her. Whereas she could have been a super strong character, very, very interesting, pulling the strings in the background.
Because she's much more interesting than Uther.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, that was the only good thing about the Uther scenes was his mother.
Yeah, she's really, and she's a very good actress too. Yeah. Like she pulls it off in those first 3 episodes. But can I talk about the single thing that angered me the most in this show?
Oh, do it.
Okay, so Morgana is the best character.
100%.
She's the best character until we get to episode 7. Because in episode 7, Morgana suddenly becomes an idiot. And the reason she becomes an idiot is they're in this cave system, which is where they've gone because they're hiding they're going to meet Merlin, and they end up in the caves, and Nimue drops the sword.
Well, she throws it in anger.
Right, yeah.
So stupid.
And it's like, what?
This is such a poor choice, Nim.
So ridiculous. And then Kaze is like, I'll go get it. And then Morgana goes, no, I'll go get it. You're like, no.
Nimue should go get it. You threw the fucking sword. Go get it yourself, dummy.
Exactly.
But they go she goes down into this haunted cave, right? And Celia walks out of the dark. And Morgana knows, number one, that Celia is dead.
Right.
Even if she doesn't know Celia is dead, she's 90% certain Celia is dead.
Yeah.
Even if she's 10% dubious that she isn't dead, why would Celia be living in the depths of a black cave in the middle of nowhere, down where the sword is? Why would she come walking out and still have Morgana react to her and talk to her as if she is the real Celia? Because in that scene, and I watched it again afterwards, it's not, oh my God, there's something happening here. Are you a ghost? It's, Celia, I thought you were dead. Hugs, kisses. What? Up until this point,
right? Her lack of suspicion, her lack of suspicion seems bizarre to me.
But doesn't Celia say that like they say something about how they managed to escape and they hid in the tunnels? Like I thought that was something that she said initially. She doesn't?
No.
Am I just?
She just comes up.
Oh my gosh! I feel now. I feel like I'm just connecting plot dots.
Because Celia goes on to explain that she's dead.
Oh, okay. Right, yeah, because eventually she acknowledges
she does
that
explain.
Dead.
So it's just this beginning of it.
Okay, all right.
And because I just forgot her name, Morgana. I nearly said what's her face, and then but Morgana says, "I thought you were dead." She's like, "No, or maybe not fully dead." It's something some vagary like that.
Don't worry about it.
Yes, my apologies to anyone listening to this episode. We all watched this show like a few weeks ago, and then just got around to recording it. So some of our rantings and things are misrememberings.
But this is just one of those things where it just drives me insane because clearly, especially when she admits that she's dead, right? Because I mean, maybe I'm reading it as her admitting that she's dead, but she definitely says, I can't talk to you anymore unless you let this spider crawl into your mouth and hide in your eyeball. And at that point, surely your suspicions should be raised that
Right.
this might be coming from the side of evil in some way.
You know what I thought was going to happen? I thought that she was going to be possessed by the spider and that she would be the one to kill Nim while possessed by the spider and like completely eliminate the Iris character. Like that's what I thought.
Yeah.
Like it just like she
doesn't it make
because
so
that's what
much
they're
more
going
sense?
for, especially because the Kailiach, the spider demon thingy, keeps like telling her like it's destiny. You, not Nimue, are supposed to be the most powerful witch.
Exactly.
100%.
That's totally where I thought we were headed. There was going to be some like witchy showdown, and then that would be. But I mean, I guess their special effects budget really couldn't hold up for two people to be using magic in the same scene.
No.
Even in that scene where Nimue becomes the queen of the Britons or whatever it is, queen of the Fae, right, or the Fae queen, hail the Fae queen. It's really setting that up because Morgana is in the room saying the words, but there's no emotion. She's clearly under the influence of something else. It's clearly just for show. It's like, hail the Fae queen, hail the Fae queen. And we see the little spider crawl across her eyeball. And it just makes so much more sense. It's so much more narratively satisfying to have this evil version of the magic, because that's what the Kailak represents. It's the Irish word for lost. It means coming from the dark side of the magic, as in the Fae meaning bright, Kailak meaning dark, that they would be battling with each other. It makes perfect sense. And yet, at the end of it, they're all working together. I mean, we'll get to the end in a minute. I'm legitimately angry about it. But it just annoys me so much that a character who, up until this point, as we said, has been leading the Underground Railroad, has been competent and in charge
and crafty. I mean, she's hiding a lot of things from a lot of people.
Is suddenly foolish enough to just wander in and go, oh, there's my dead girlfriend. No, she's not dead. Oh, wait, she might be dead, but I kind of really like talking to her.
So don't worry about it.
Right. And then it's also this bizarre, so the way they then handle this whole possession thing is that there's this character, the Widow, who's mostly interacted thus far with Merlin. And she's like death, basically. And she realizes that Morgana's possessed and like chokes the Kailiach out of her, question mark?
Yeah, it's weird.
Well,
the other thing is, I thought the Widow was Uther's mother.
Right.
For the first 3 times she showed up. As in, this woman is working in the background helping Merlin, because it's shown that they have a relationship later on.
That would have been such a more interesting plot. Like, if she were kind of double agenting the whole thing, that would have been really cool.
And then also that would have meant that the mother had something to do, which would have been nice because she was very interesting.
Yeah, and genuinely I was thinking this, oh, she's been Fae this entire time. And she's been working this magic angle under Uther's nose, and the whole stuff with the poisoning is to hide the magic. So maybe she's not actually poisoning people, she's using magic, but then, oh, I'm actually the potions master at Hogwarts. I'm not the master of the dark arts. Like, but
I am the Half-Blood Prince.
I'm the Half-Blood Prince, exactly. But in the end, it just turns out, nope, Mother's dead, and this is just another unexplained character that gets taken over in what do you call them, Jillian? Vine
swipes. Like or vine wipes.
I actually like the concept that Morgana like fights the Widow and then kills her because the Widow says like that Nimue is gonna die, and so Morgana like fights her and then because of that becomes like kills her and therefore becomes her. I actually think that's interesting. But it's a scene that should have been interesting, but instead of showing the scene, so you said they're called vine wipes, Jillian?
Yeah, well, instead of a star wipe, it's like vines.
Right.
So that's
like
every time they did those. Yeah,
video.
anytime they did those weird little interstitial things, it was just like, oh, okay, I guess this is like part of, like, you didn't have the budget. And this particular thing we're talking about, like, pretty much happens in a vine wipe. So you don't really see it happening, which is like, okay, if you're gonna spend money somewhere, that would have been a good place to spend it.
Yeah.
It's the other thing that really sucks about the vine wipes is that they play fake Evanescence music over the top of
which
them
is
all the
also
time.
the theme music is this like basically like low rent Evanescence.
It's like, what is this?
Wake me up
It's
inside.
2004 all over again. Wake me up.
So speaking of music, we haven't talked too much about the female gazy stuff or the sex scene, which I feel like we have to tackle like in the context of this episode, because that was one. There was amongst the three of us, there was a lot of debate as to whether or not you saw Nimue topless, because at one point there's a very quick chest shot of somebody, and I was the tiebreaker, and it was Arthur. I
really thought we got Nimue's good for a second.
No, she had modesty hair, so like it covers her
Which
chest.
is interesting, because that means that we really do see so much more of Arthur showing off his body, not only in this scene, but also there's this scene a while back when they're flirting in some hot springs, and Arthur's like, here, I don't want you to feel bad about your scars, because she has these like magic scars. And he's like, no, to make you feel better, I'm going to, quote, show off my scars, which means that he, like, stands up and, like, twists his body to, like, show off his pecs.
Yeah.
And his butt.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, showing your, quote, scars, Arthur. Okay, sure.
It's very much the scene from Jaws where they're comparing scars, but with the addition of abs and cum gutters. So it was, it was like, ooh. Like, but yeah, you don't see anything. I contest to in the scene where they are in the hot springs that like you can see the top part of his chest in the water, but you cannot see hers.
Yeah.
So I think Catherine Langford had some sort of nudity clause or something.
Yeah, I bet you're
right. You see you see Arthur naked, you see Merlin naked, you do not see her naked. And you know, in any other show, I do have to applaud them for that, because in any other show, there'd be like a shot of her emerging from the water, like she's supposed to be the lady of the lake. There'd be a shot of her emerging from the water in some sort of like very gauzy white dress.
Right.
You know that they would do that on like almost any other show. And I appreciated that they did it, and that a lot of the like a lot of the pervy shots are of men and not ladies.
Right, yeah, the pervy shots are like all about men, yeah.
I wouldn't even call them pervy shots. Can I talk about Catherine Langford for a second? Because I don't want to, because like as a dude, right? So she's very, very pretty. She is not waif thin. And I would assume that a lot of this was her saying, or a clause in her contract saying, well, I'm not showing my body, because if she was to show her body in the way that Skarsgård shows his, people are going to look at him and go, oh, he's playing a man. They would look at her body, and she's not waif thin, she's not a feather, she's a normal-looking human being. She would get so much crap about it. Like, it's just, it's painful how much more the body standards are on women than they are on men, that you can have a normal dude just take off his shirt and have his, you know, dad bod. Like, that's like I was watching
Merlin's
something
bad dad, magic dad bod.
Mad dad bod, yeah, exactly. But I saw something recently where they were talking about Zac Efron.
I saw that too. That was wild.
But they're going right. So first of all, Zac Efron's like 10 years younger than me, right? They were going on about his dad bod. And I'm sitting looking at this guy going, he has pecs and arms and a 4-pack, and yes, he's got a little bit of 30-year-old man spread around the waist. That's not a dad bod.
No.
Right.
Dad bod is, I've got a gut because I've been drinking 6 cans of beer maybe not quite beer belly level. But it's the fact that they were like, oh, he's got a dad bod. Isn't it hard on men now? And you're thinking,
no,
it's not.
No way. He's still Zac Efron. Like, he still has, like, a beautiful man face. And, like, yeah.
Right.
It's
and
like,
also,
he skipped ab day one day at the gym, and then people are freaking out at him. Like, that's ridiculous.
Right. And I completely agree that it does seem really possible that there would have been a bunch of gross comments about, like, oh, we can, like, see that she has some small amount of belly fat. And in addition to the fact that, you know, anybody of any gender has the perfect right to say, I don't want to be naked in a thing, it also does definitely seem possible that one of the reasons could be that she, didn't want to have people commenting on her body and criticizing her body, which they shouldn't. She's lovely, but that she's not that traditional like stick figure thing.
Yeah.
And this is something that pops up a lot as well, right? So I'm going to talk about this as a man talking about man stuff, right? I sit down and I watch a movie. And I see a dude who's got a six-pack and he's built like, and he's covered in muscles and stuff like this here. And I can look at that and say, that is only achievable for somebody who has the ability to spend 8 hours a day in a gym with their personal trainer who is giving them chicken fillets for breakfast, 7 eggs at lunchtime, and then an entire chicken in the evening time. And that's all they're eating. They're not even having salad because salad's not going to help you build up those pecs, right? And I can watch that. And as a perfectly rational man, I can sit there and say, I will never achieve that, right? But I also know that 2 weeks ago, I was out on the beach and I took my shirt off and I wandered around with my 39-year-old, doesn't do all that much exercise body. And I didn't have one look in my direction. I didn't have anybody snigger. Do you get what I'm saying? It's like, so when you see tons of people, and I saw articles written about this and it's very female, and so there was loads of people saying it's great that it's female gaze, and it is, but there were lots of guys, let's call them MRAs, right, men's rights activists, going, it's an unachievable thing for men, and Arthur's on the thing and he's got a six-pack and I'll never have a six-pack. Nobody expects you to have a six-pack. Nobody looks at you as a man and thinks, I'm going to judge this guy. When every single other show on TV is Peter Griffin married to Lois Griffin, who is a 9 and he's a 4, right? And that's the logic that goes in TV shows and movies. And just because there's one show that happens to show off the male character's abs more than to show off the female bodies doesn't suddenly mean that we've readdressed the balance. It doesn't mean that this is anti-men. It just means that for once you had to sit down and watch a show where you saw more of a naked dude than you did a naked woman.
I appreciated this glimpse into Ollie's psyche where he was admitting that Lois Griffin was a 9. Like this.
Oh yeah, no, it's great.
This definitely. Well, she's a redhead. She's feisty. I get it. I appreciate that. Like that's the sexiness scale of Ollie Brady.
Are you kidding me? Lois Griffin, all day, every day.
No other cartoon ladies come close for you.
I kind of like Leela from Futurama.
Sure, she's pretty butt kicking. I get it.
Yeah.
But she got that one eye.
You're prejudiced on the one eye, Ollie.
I'm going to be honest with you. I have a lot of difficulty with aliens. Just for the sheer fact that they're not seeing me. But then it turns out that she's not actually an alien. She's a mutant. And I'll be honest with you, that brings her back up on that
scale. There we go. Okay.
So I think we should probably at this point talk a bit about the end and then move into some of the other segments.
Absolutely. Since, we have deviated from the timeline fairly significantly, but I hope it's been entertaining.
I think it's fun, but just in terms of timing and all of that, should probably move forward. So we end with Nimue agrees to give herself up to Uther and as well as the sword in exchange for the Fae being basically given boats out of Britain. And, so that happens, but then she basically tells Morgana to take the sword and take off. And then Uther's mad and he's debating about whether to hand her over to the Paladins. And basically all hell breaks loose. Meanwhile, the Paladins have killed Gawain and given it to her, which gives her a good boost to do some angry magic. Morgana's the widow now, so that's fun. And then also the Weeping Monk, because he feels bad about Squirrel, who is a child, much like himself, I guess, being about to be killed. He just switches sides and is now a good guy in like a very half-assed redemption arc.
Mm-hmm. So that was a very 11th hour thing where it was like through like 9.5 episodes he did not care, and then in the last like 15 minutes I guess this is where we're at.
Right. So he kills a bunch of the papal guards. Nimue kills Cardan, and so then we have Nimue and Morgana and Merlin are all running off, and they're on this bridge, and that's where Iris kills Nimue.
We think.
There's just a couple of things before that. The killing of Carden, number one, she cuts his head off.
Yes,
yeah, that was pretty brutal. I was surprised.
No Carden in season 2, so we don't have to sit and think, oh, are they going to bring him back? No, he's dead.
Yeah.
So obviously,
it's a nice, clear death.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the representative from the Pope is going to be the bad guy.
Well, or Iris.
Season, I'm assuming. Well, Iris as well, but I think, you know that guy who showed up with the Golden Fist Warriors? Wicklow, yeah. I think he's going to be the main bad guy, whatever, which is good. You know, he seems like a zealot as well. But in the scene leading up to Carden getting beheaded, Nimue goes in and has a sword fight with a random paladin with 300 paladins standing around watching.
Right.
She nearly loses the fight, but ends up winning. Then Carden comes out to talk to her, which ends up with him getting beheaded.
Which is good.
But all the other paladins just stand around and watch.
Yeah, that's what I like to refer to as the Steven Seagal method of fighting. It's like if you watch Steven Seagal movies, which I do because I love that kind of stuff. But if you watch those movies, as he gets older and heavier, he's less adept at moving around. So people only attack him one at a time, very slowly. Like nobody thinks of swarming him. It's just one, okay, you're dispatched. Two, okay, you're dispatched. Like that's very much what it seemed to be. It's like, okay, we can't deal with a free for all. Let's just have everybody else stand by in awe.
Right. I was just going to say, like, and then they all just, like, when she kills Carden, they're all just like, yeah, we're done here.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. We're done, right? I was going to say, have you seen Exit Wounds, Jillian?
I haven't,
with DMX?
actually. That's on my list, though.
That is just in the period after he started to get super doughy. So it's after Glimmerman.
Yeah.
And before that, they really slowed down everything, right? But there's a bit in the middle of it where they do a little bit of wire work with him.
Oh, no.
So it's 49-year-old Steven Seagal with a punch, and he drops down, lands on one hand, does an upwards kick to a guy in the face, and then comes back up into a karate stance.
Oh, no.
And DMX is in the movie with his 12-pack.
He's just standing there patiently waiting for this to end.
Yeah. But he's like, that's so impressive. I can't believe you did that. And you're like, yeah, it was clearly wired. Like, nobody believes this happened. But anyway, sorry. So what I'm getting at there is they all should have just ran in and killed her.
Yeah.
But they didn't,
right?
So
and but they don't.
And then Squirrel at the same time is giving a rah-rah chant to the
right, yeah.
monk.
And it's only because he goes, you can do it, that the Weeping Monk remembers, oh, right, I'm badass, and is able to kill a bunch of the gold-faced Pope guards.
Oh, it's so bad.
So, and then they're off doing their own thing, riding off into the distance. And this is where we get the reveal. So Squirrel, his real name is Percival, and the Weeping Monk is Lancelot, and I think I literally shrieked, you have to be fucking kidding me.
That's what I was saying about, like, all the names in the hat. They're just, like, pulling things out and attributing people to whoever they want them to be. Like, that was so weird.
It's just such a weird choice. Like, why would you do that?
About 4 episodes in, when we're introduced to the Red Spear, and I was saying to Sarah, do you know what? The representing is this. She's kind of like a queen of the stuff. I think she could represent Guinevere, Red Spear, Guinevere. This is how I think it's going to go. All right? And then Sarah said something along the lines of, it wouldn't be so silly as to just have different people be different characters like that. Like, they've already done it with Morgana. It's not going to happen, right? So It hasn't been revealed that she's Guinevere. I assumed it had. For some reason, I thought that she'd met Arthur and said Guinevere instead of Red Spear, but she says Red Spear. But you could have given me 50 options as to who the monk was actually meant to be.
Yeah, and that would not have been it.
Said, if you'd have said Mordred, I'd have been like, yeah, that makes sense because he's the bad guy. Why do we have this turnaround? And Squirrel as Percival is so ridiculous that, I mean, unless we are going to have a 15-year time jump, I don't understand how Percival, again, fitting within Arthurian legend, he's young and naive, but he's not 10.
Well, and that got revealed earlier. Like the Lancelot thing was at the very end, but the Gawain the Green Knight called him Percival earlier, so that wasn't.
Oh, that's right. Yeah,
that wasn't even a thing, really. I was just like, really? Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, the Lancelot reveal, I was not here for. I mean, because I also I'm not here for that redemption arc because it's just so out of nowhere, and it's also we've just been watching this guy brutally murdering people, and the fact that he's racially aligned with them means that oh, okay, now we're supposed to think that he's fine. It's just such a weird
also
thing.
Jillian, what is Lancelot most famous for doing in Arthurian legend?
Well, wasn't he the one who took Guinevere from Arthur?
Yeah,
that was my understanding from reading things and also watching the movie First Night years and years ago.
Right, that's the point of Lancelot.
Entire place is the Great Betrayal. How is it a great betrayal if you already are distrustful of him in the first place? The whole point is that Lancelot is meant to come in, be the hero, be the perfect boy, be the quarterback on the high school football team, but he's your best mate. And then one day you don't show up to school and he steals your girl. That's Lancelot. Yeah. It's not, he's been my antagonist the entire time. He's evil. He's totally evil. No, he's a good guy now. Oh, now he slept.
Well, had Arthur encountered? Oh, no, he did. For a second, I was like, did they even encounter each other? But they did at
in the grain silo.
Yeah,
he's the one that he shot the arrow at Arthur that Arthur dodged.
Yes. Yeah, no, Arthur, well, according to all the things I understand Lancelot to be sort of a fuckboy, so I guess...
he doesn't seem like a fuckboy. This man has never had sex.
He just listened to very sad lute music in his
Yes,
room.
You've introduced a Lancelot that, this Lancelot aggressively does not fuck.
Yeah.
Do you know how he doesn't have sex? He's got those constant tears.
Oh...
Oh, he's an insult.
I shouldn't laugh at that, actually. That's a very bad thing.
It's true. But when we get to the end, so the true ending, other than Iris getting stuff, is they're all running off to escape. Nimue is with Arthur and Morgana, who is now
Merlin
good.
and Morgana.
Merlin and Morgana, and she's good now, and they're fighting off people on a small bridge. Yeah. And then Iris shows up, shoots an arrow at them that goes past. Nimue turns around and stands and looks at her, despite the fact that she's got all of this magic in her.
Yep.
And just stands there and takes arrows to the chest, Boromir style.
Seriously! Use your magic sword!
Yeah, you're a magician here.
Turn her into a tree!
So she falls off into the water, which brings us back to our original scene, the very start of the show, drops the sword, picked up by Merlin, who then suddenly goes, just to use an anime reference, Super Saiyan Dragon Ball Z style.
Right, he's electrified, yeah.
He's electrified, and then just reaches it up to the air, and then himself and Morgana teleport.
Right! And then, what happened? And then, Iris just is he just, leaves her there and is I don't give a shit, whatever, do your thing. Why didn't he kill her? I would kill her.
He tries to hit her with lightning.
I would kill her right now.
Well, yeah, also that was his daughter. She murdered his daughter, which, he spent a lot of the show trying to protect and, do deals with various sea goths and princes and stuff to protect her. And then she's murdered, and he doesn't really seem to have a reaction to it. It was so odd.
Right. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Also, I guess we did forget to mention that, meanwhile, the Vikings show up. There's the rival Vikings, and the Vikings under Cumber the Ice King show up and are going to try and kill all the Fae because they've made a deal with the Red Paladins.
I think so.
And then Arthur and the other chunk of Vikings fight them off.
It's just the Vikings are there just for eye candy and possibly Guinevere. I still think that's Guinevere. Otherwise, there's no reason for her to be there.
Yeah.
She has that meeting with Arthur at the end where it's mutual respect. And obviously Nimue is now dead, so Arthur's love for Nimue is gone.
So spoiler from things I read on the internet, my understanding is that in the original source material, she is supposed to be Guinevere.
That makes sense.
So it's...
Oh, sorry. Did I just say it makes sense? Sorry, that makes no sense, but I understand.
You're not
I
surprised.
object to this turn of events, but sure.
Yeah, I'm not sure I'm on board with it, but like, all right, whatever. It's not the worst like reveal that would happen in this show.
Yeah,
that's the Lancelot one.
That's not a high bar to clear, though. Like,
yeah.
So, Sarah, can we move on to the next section?
Yes, we can.
I just can't wait to sing, because now it's very it falls so. God damn, I never get any better. What did they get right and what did they get wrong, Sarah?
So there's like a lot happening. I'm not going to get into all of the departures from traditional Arthurian legend. I will, however, note that Gawain is supposed to fight the Green Knight and not be the Green Knight, which is a choice. But the thing that I would say I found most frustrating in terms of things that they did not do super well is that the timeline is just like an absolute mess. Because so if there were a historical King Arthur, right, that would have been like late 5th, early 6th century. But then there's all of this stuff that belongs much later. So first of all, the architecture, most of it's like 15th century, like the convent. The convent architecture is very clearly 15th century. Like it fits, it does not belong. But then there's also, at some point, Rugen mentions Charlemagne, who was active circa 800, as somebody who has died.
Never existed.
That is a ridiculous theory that will not be countenanced on this podcast. Have you heard about this, Jillian? The phantom time theory, I think it's called, that like Charlemagne wasn't real.
Oh no. I am not. It's funny. I worked in academic publishing for like 10 years, but like a lot of that had to do with just like skimming things. I didn't read.
I mean, this I'm not sure you would find in academic publishing because I don't think any real academics have actually signed on to this because it's ridiculous and makes no sense.
So for those of you who don't know anything about it, the most powerful figures in the 800s get together and decide that they're going to transpose the world to the year 1000 so that they can exist in the year 1000.
And then invent a bunch of people from the last 200 years.
And then they invented 200 years of history. And it is insane.
And it also especially does not, in addition to being insane even for Western Europe, it's also like creepily, weirdly Western centric in that like, how did they reconcile that with the fact that like, this clearly didn't happen in the Islamic world, which is better documented in this period as well. Like, are they claiming that, like, they, like, teamed up to do this? Because that sure doesn't seem likely. Or do they just, like, not care that Muslims exist? That seems more likely in terms of this theory. Anyway.
It's just one of those ridiculous things which, when you're reading it, you're like, oh, this is vaguely interesting. I've read a book about it, and it is legitimately interesting, but at the same time you're there going, this guy has doctor in front of his name, which means that he has at least gone to the trouble of getting a PhD.
True, in something.
In history, and still...
Are you sure it's in history?
Well, yeah. I'll tell you one thing, it's definitely not physics, because he wouldn't have even thought about doing this. But anyway, Sarah, Charlemagne is mentioned, as we know, didn't exist.
Charlemagne is mentioned as somebody who's long dead. And so it's like, okay, so Arthur's like in 500, but this person who was around in 800 is dead already. All right, that makes sense. And then there's the Vikings, who first started raiding England in the late 8th century. So in like, I think it's 793 maybe is the first Viking raid on England. And that's contemporary with this. And also this guy Cumber keeps saying, I'm the rightful heir to the throne. And the period where you have Vikings claiming these like semi-valid, making these kind of semi-valid claims of kingship in England, that's the 11th century. And so it's just this like very muddled timeline.
Yeah, it just seems like they were like, this happened in olden times, and we're just going to jam everything we want in.
Right. It's like the Middle Ages. It was all the same. And it all just happened at the exact same time. Don't worry about it. Mm-hmm. Like, it's definitely one of those pieces of media. which I find frustrating. The pretense that like nothing changed over a period of a millennium, and also like all of them happen, all things happened at the exact same time.
It's such a weird mismatch of, this is something that happened, here's something that happened, let's put in a reference. Boudica was a real person. Right. Let's just show her long dead.
Right. And that's the one timeline thing that I will say, like, okay, Boudica died several centuries before Arthur. Fine.
Makes sense.
But then Bruken's also like, and when I remember back when I hung out with Charlemagne, and I'm like, I'm sorry, what, you mean in the future? And then it's like, no, Vikings, get out of here. Go back to Scandinavia where you belong.
Listen, we've been saying that in Ireland for several thousand years now. Give us back our people.
Yeah, and so it's just such a weird mess. The thing that I will say, there's one thing that I wanted to mention that I do think they do well, which is I appreciate that the way women's monasticism is handled. First of all, it's made pretty clear that, so there is this possibility of essentially external male intervention on the part of Father Cardan and the Red Paladins, but for the most part, it seems pretty clear that in the day-to-day workings of the abbey, it's really run by the abbess. And it is essentially like a female space, and also therefore a female-run and female-led space. And I do appreciate that they kind of make that clear. And also that I do want to note that we do have documentary evidence that heavily implies that there were definitely lesbian nuns.
Sarah, are you again claiming that The Little Hours is a documentary?
I was just thinking of The Little Hours when you said that.
As we said on that episode, no, it's not.
It's not a documentary, and nor is this, trust me. But the fact that nuns, and for that matter monks, are internally having relationships with one another in this, relatively like confined space where everybody is supposed to be celibate, but like celibacy is hard, that, the nuns are having relationships with one another, as our monks are having relationships with one another. That happening among monks is better documented, basically because most texts are written by men who seem in this period to have, it genuinely seems to often have not occurred to them that lesbians exist, because how could women possibly have sex without a man involved?
Makes sense.
But we have bits here and there that do indicate that like this was something that happened in convents, and it certainly makes a lot of sense that this is something that happened in convents. There also is a fun theory, which I'm not quite sure I buy into, but it is fun, which is, so if you look at images of the side wound of Christ from the 13th, 14th
Sarah,
century. Nope, we're going to do this.
I know exactly where you're going with this.
The side wound of Christ often looks rather vaginal. And there has been some discussion of the implications of the practice of women kissing these rather vaginal-looking images of the side wound of Christ as a devotional practice. And yes, I'll host a picture. The theory is interesting. There are people who are proponents of it and people who are not. But some of these side wounds of Christ do look extremely vaginal. Not all of them, but some of them.
I just appreciate that Jillian gave that theory the silence it deserved.
Well, yeah, I'm here to learn.
Sarah told me about this about 2 years ago, and she was like, "Look at this, Ollie," and she sent me a picture. And I mean, first of all, she sent me a picture of a vagina. Like, that's what it was. It's not actually what it was. It was like,
it was the disembodied side wound of Christ.
But I mean, in my head, I was there going, "Why are you sending me this? This is unacceptable behavior, Sarah Iftecker."
Because in particular, there's the weird choice that like the side wound, that like they change the orientation in a lot of these images. So like the side wound of Christ would, I mean, in terms of like like it would be normally like horizontal. And in a number of these images, they change the orientation to make it vertical, which makes it look way more like a vagina.
Oh, for sure. Now I have to see this picture. Like,
oh yeah, no, I will send some classic vaginal side wounds of Christ.
Well, my afternoon is set, gang.
Yes.
I do not subscribe to this.
Does it hurt? It doesn't hurt your good Catholic sensibilities.
No, I subscribe that Charlemagne didn't exist.
This is a much better theory than Charlemagne not existing, is the lesbian-like behavior involved in devotion to the side wound of Christ.
Sarah, is there anything that's historically relevant in this movie? I know one thing that jumps straight out to me. I'm assuming that's what you're going to talk about, but what actually is Historia et Veritas?
So this is a segment where we talk about a real historical event or phenomenon related to this. And for that, I want to talk about what are the antecedents of the Red Paladins. So, first of all, the Red Paladins are clearly supposed to be the Inquisition in some capacity. And in particular, I would say probably potentially most inspired by the Spanish Inquisition. So, first, a couple of words about Inquisitions. The Inquisition, in terms of like the church or papal Inquisition, had been around, really kind of takes off in the 13th century as and it's primarily targeting Christian heretics. So in particular, like the Cathars based in southern France are like big targets of the papal Inquisition. We then kind of fast forward a couple centuries, and in the Iberian Peninsula in the year 1391, there are these huge massacres of Jews, and as a result, there's also a bunch of Jews who, under duress, convert to Christianity. And a number of them are not necessarily super sincere about it, which makes sense because they didn't want to be Christian in the first place. And in 1478, so first of all, there's a lot of change happening in the Iberian Peninsula because these two big separate kingdoms, Castile and Aragon, are now functionally at least semi-united because the two rulers, Ferdinand of Aragon and Isabella of Castile, have married each other. And they, in 1478, get permission from the Pope to establish their own Inquisition, which is no longer under papal jurisdiction, it's under their royal jurisdiction, and also which is primarily, at this point at least, concerned with basically all of these converts who are supposed to be Christian and who are failing to be Christian. So it doesn't actually target Jews, it targets these converts. So anyone who's a Jew who is not converted, you're not allowed to help the converts be Jewish, but otherwise the Inquisition has no jurisdiction over you. They're not trying to convert people. They're just trying to essentially deal with does mean often like attack these converts.
And would they have riled up the other good Christian folk to attack the Jews or to attack other people who weren't Christians?
So that's definitely not something that you're exactly seeing in the Inquisition. So it's like that. So there are these kind of massacres that happen. The Inquisition, that's not really what their point is. But on the other hand, because they're trying to root out these kind of secret, essentially Christian passing Jews, as one might put it, they are essentially often encouraging people to inform on their neighbors. And this is definitely something that we do also, in addition to the kind of mass violence, we do also see a lot of hints of in the Red Paladins. They actually talk about there are some Fae who are able to pass and how you can tell that they're really Fae. And it does very much kind of recall this like rooting out of hidden Jews who are pretending to be Christians. But it is also, I think, interesting in that in addition to drawing on the realities of the Spanish Inquisition, the Red Paladins also draw on a lot of the imaginary and misconceptions about the Spanish Inquisition.
That nobody expected.
What? Sorry?
That nobody expected. Sorry, I had to make a Monty Python joke in there. Like, it was yelling out to me. So please continue after my stupid joke.
I think you actually could. I actually would argue that nobody expected the Spanish Inquisition, and that the Jews, with the exception of this moment in 1391, I would say often kind of felt relatively secure. It's also there were actually Jews who helped like fund and promote this marriage, thinking that it would be good for the Jews. They were super wrong, because they founded the Inquisition, and then like 14 years after that, expelled them from Spain. So it was not, in fact, a good idea, but they were under the impression that it might be. So I think you could, in fact, argue that nobody expects the Spanish Inquisition.
We've all made those mistakes, you know, where you think something's good for you, and then you end up getting expelled from Spain. Listen, it's happened to us all.
Yeah, you know, hindsight is 2020. But yeah, so I think you could argue that nobody expected the Spanish Inquisition. But the other thing is that I've been trying to figure out, and I actually wonder if the Monty Python sketch might actually be the origin of the perception that inquisitors wore red robes. Which I spent a lot of time looking this up, but there does not seem to be any evidence for it. Red robes are worn by cardinals, and there certainly were cardinals who might be associated with the Inquisition, but many of the inquisitors are, so for example, they're Dominicans. So they're coming from different monastic orders, and the Dominican inquisitors, like, they just wear the robes of their order, which are black.
I mean, how did the Dominicans get to Europe? A little bit of geography humor there, everybody.
I mean, I assume the Dominican Republic is named after the Dominican order, which was probably being terrible.
What do you mean being terrible? Converting people to
by force.
The good word of Jesus.
By killing them. Or suggesting that they might kill them. I don't love the Dominicans. Anyway,
I used to work in a Dominican school. I also do not love the Dominicans.
But yeah, so the Dominicans are very heavily involved in the Inquisition, and so a lot of the inquisitors, like, they're wearing black robes because they're Dominicans. And the red robes thing is especially kind of weird because yellow and red are then the colors of the robes that the inquisitors would make penitents wear. So that's interesting. And the other thing that I wanted to note is specifically how the weeping monk fits into this, as this person who's really Fae, but is now on the other side of the people trying to destroy the Fae. And it interestingly recalls that there is this very long history of converts from Judaism to Christianity, in particular, essentially skilled male converts, although in this regard, usually skilled in, like, they know things about Judaism, they have kind of access to Jewish texts, they're very highly educated, that there's this long history of those figures then essentially becoming leaders in anti-Jewish first preaching, and eventually in the Inquisition as well. So this is, as I said, a long history. One earlier example is in the Disputation of Barcelona in 1263. There's this guy who, it's fun, he literally, when he became Christian, he just named himself Paul the Christian. Like, his name is just Paul Christian. It's Pau Cristià is the Catalan.
Chance the Rapper, Paul the Christian.
I know, right? It's like wow, that was creative, buddy. Good job. Paul Christian, everybody.
Big stretch.
But he was the Christian representative in this debate that basically the Jews were forced to participate in about whether Christianity or Judaism was right. That Jews never want to participate in because it's kind of lose-lose for Jews, because if you win, you're going to get in trouble for blasphemy, and if you lose, then it makes, then it might kind of further encourage conversions. So there's really no good outcome, and Jews only are participating in it because they're forced to. But the church thinks it's a great idea. And then when you actually talk about the Spanish Inquisition, the first Grand Inquisitor, named by Ferdinand and Isabella, a man named Tomás de Torquemada, he's actually of converso background. So he's actually comes from a family that was Jewish that was forcibly converted to Christianity.
And when he changed his name, he changed it to Lancelot, obviously.
Yes, as you do.
Oh, God. Let's not perpetuate that horrible timeline.
And he also had this weird tattoo so that everybody knew he was Jewish, as you do. Jews all have those weird tattoos.
Oh.
Before we go into the next section, I have a small confession to make about this. When we were watching this, and the first of the Inquisiting style fanatics came in, and Sarah was like, "Oh, look at these guys in their red cloaks. Can't guess what this is based on." And my first instinct was, yeah, just a complete rip-off of the White Cloaks from Wheel of Time. And I'd already started typing it out to Sarah, like, oh, it's just based on the White Cloaks. And I was like, no, the Spanish Inquisition was a thing. Sorry, I'll delete that so she doesn't think I'm an idiot.
Though.
Right.
Wheel of Time, though, like, based on that.
They're just both takeoffs of the Inquisition.
Yeah, but the Wheel of Time does it so much better.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
But also, if we're going with red cloaks, what about the Imperial Guard from Star Wars? They had red cloaks.
Oh, yeah.
Didn't they? I mean, I'm from a Star Wars
so
household.
Cool. They look so cool up until the point they get taken apart by Kylo and his woman.
Don't get me started on the
Kylo
Ren Rey situation. Yeah, I can't.
Don't even start.
But yeah, so the Red Paladins are this very like Inquisition inspired, I would say in some ways especially Spanish Inquisition inspired group, although kind of shades I would say of the Papal Inquisition too, because it is the Papal Inquisition that's more involved in these essentially kind of militaristic efforts against the Cathar heretics. So they're kind of, I would say, in some ways like a blend of inquisitorial forces throughout the history, which is in keeping with this show, which thinks that everything in the Middle Ages took place at the same time. It also has all Inquisitions bundled up together. So I think we can now move to the next section. Ali, I know you have to take off in a few minutes, so would you like to introduce us to...
Sweet. So... Fabula Nostra. So in this section, we get to talk about what we would do if we were going to write a story based on this show, right? So Cursed is a female-centered version of the Arthurian legend, right? So I'm going to use this, I've only got a few minutes before I have to run. I'm going to use this to beat the same drum that I've always beaten, right? Which is that after watching Merlin, the only thing I wanted to have happen was for Morgana to win.
Yes.
Right? Because in the BBC show Merlin, Morgana is the best character. Most of her chemistry comes with Guinevere.
Yes.
And obviously Morgana joining together to form a perfect union of co-queens is what I always wanted. Now, bearing in mind that our Morgana in Cursed is a lesbian, and the red spear has, I'm going to be a little bit stereotypical here, a lesbian haircut. Let's assume that she also... I got permission from Sarah to say that. So
right,
also,
to be fair, I did actually describe it as a lesbian haircut, because I am a bi woman. I could definitely, identify my own haircut as being a lesbian haircut.
So because of this, I feel like we are now closer than ever to having my vision realized. So Morgana, Arthur's sister, is going to turn, I'm going to say evil, but I've put my inverted commas up here because from my point of view, the Jedi are evil.
Then you are truly lost.
I am truly lost. So from my point of view, Morgana is not evil. She's just working on an opposite side to Arthur. And the Red Spear and her are going to meet. They're going to fall in love because, let's face it, Celia is dead. So
like we
that's
need
not
to
going to
acknowledge
ever
that.
happen for you, Morgana. And they're two really attractive people, and they're going to meet each other and be like, oh my God. And they're like, oh my God. And then they're going to fall in love, and they're going to confuse all of those inquisitors who are going to be like, but two women? How would that even work? So in my version of Cursed Season 2, it's going to be Morgana and the Red Spear, who's going to turn out to be Guinevere, falling in love. They're the ones who are going to do the great betrayal, because nobody's going to trust Lancelot.
Also, no one is fucking Lancelot. I'm sorry, I'm just not here for like this. Lancelot does not fuck.
No.
Listen, he's very moody, and a lot of women like that. But the important thing is that these two are going to form a union and become the power couple in this world, right? So they're going to overthrow Uther. They're going to at some point it's going to be revealed that Arthur is the one and true king, and then they're just going to kill him, right? So I'm all for major characters, Jillian, I don't know if you've ever heard my views on what should have happened in Harry Potter, which is that he's standing on the bridge at the end and he's going to break the Elder Wand, and then somebody should have just walked up and shanked him. Boom, done. Harry Potter's out of the universe. Shove the body off. Keep the Elder Wand. Ron,
Hermione, no.
You're just going to look straight at Ron and just go, what are you going to do about it? The answer is nothing, Ron. You're not going to do anything, Ron. You're just going to stand there and watch. I just killed your friend. You're going to look at Hermione and go, come on, Hermione, you're with me now. And she's going to be like, oh, I respect the power. Whatever. I don't know.
I think Hermione's the one who shanks him.
Hermione probably could shank him.
Hermione is I would go
for
that. I put
that.
up with your shit for 7 books.
I am so fucking done.
You're the worst. By the way, Dumbledore, not that good of a teacher, pretty bad principal. Let's just face it, right?
Oh, for sure.
I don't know why you're going
hero
worshipping this dude. But anyway, we're getting away from this, right? So Morgana, Guinevere, totally going to form a union, power couple. And in my version of Curse, the TV show, the entire second season is them getting justice for Nimue, who should never have been killed. They're going to flay, that's right, flay Iris.
Okay.
Because she needs it, possibly even just roast her feet, whatever it happens to be, as long as she experiences a lot of pain, because I hate that character.
We're in martyr territory now. This is creepy.
I'm up to then see the icon of Iris carrying her own flayed skin like St. Bartholomew.
Oh!
Which is a real thing.
So good to me. This sounds awesome. We're going to add this in. Iris gets to carry her own flayed skin, just like St. Bartholomew, that I knew about in advance. So in this version of the story, the two women form this union, become the power in the thing, and they lead to 500 years of prosperity in England. In fact, they stopped the Vikings from invading, and we have a golden age. The Dark Ages never existed. It's all golden ages. I know
the Dark Ages
Sarah
also never existed.
Doesn't think the Dark Ages never existed, but one thing I will say is that they do instigate prima nocta, but it's only for the lady in the castle who gets to go and spend the first night with the newly married wife, just so that, I don't know. I just wanted to get in a jibe about.
I'm shaking my head, which the listeners cannot tell.
I can't hear prima nocta now without thinking of Michael Scott shouting it. Like I just,
oh god,
okay. So I'm behind Ollie's vision here for part of this. So
also I would like to comment that prima nocta is a myth.
Sarah keeps saying
also that it's
we know it's
real.
Noctis,
anyway,
as we know it to be from Braveheart or wherever it originated in our modern pop culture, it's creepy, and let's just ignore
from history.
Yeah. So
it's from history,
from the early modern period where they made it up.
So I'm into the whole like the men on the show are boring. So as I said before, like Morgana, I love her. She's the best part of the show for me. I'm also Red Spear is pretty cool. I think she has undeveloped potential, and I like Kaze. So like I like the idea of the ladies just hitting the road and having adventures, and them sort of like reshaping the kingdom in their own vision, because dick is abundant and low value, and these ladies know what they're doing. So
right, and
like
Arthur
I said,
can just be there as man candy.
Yeah, I just every so often you can have a Hawkeye show up and just sort of stand to the side. Like that was something that I liked about Mad Max Fury Road, is that like Max was there, but everybody knew Furiosa knew what was up, and just sort of like let that happen. So I would love some sort of like I said, Birds of Prey or Gotham Sirens, or like some Furiosa lady squad.
Definitely.
With the three of them for sure. If there are other cool characters, like I really did appreciate that there were actors of color in this show.
Yeah.
Just because this period of history can be so whitewashed.
Oh yes.
I know it's not really a period of history as we've talked about. It's a weird amalgam of everything, but I appreciated
the Middle Ages. Yeah,
exactly.
That's definitely something that I talked about on the podcast before. Is that it's been kind of claimed in some ways by OG Nazis and neo-Nazis.
Yeah.
As this like idyllic period of like exclusive whiteness, which it wasn't. So
yeah, could we do something where they're sort of like Nazis weren't a thing then, but like old timey Nazi hunters, just like going through
I'd be happy to just see them like hunting down the paladins.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay. Let's substitute paladins for Nazis and just have them do. That's what I always wanted to happen in the X-Men reboot when they showed Magneto hunting the like. I wanted an entire movie of that.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I want the ladies to just be like kicking butt, taking names. Maybe they're a lesbian couple. Maybe they're not. I don't know. Maybe they're a throuple. I'm not interested in the sexual politics per se of this idea, but like I think just showing them being bold and empowered, it's just that's something that I want out of this show. So second season, that's what I would like to see. I totally misinterpreted this question. I thought you were looking for like a recommendation. Of another pop culture thing. But yeah, I feel like that's where I landed after watching the show.
Yeah, I think that would be fun. I went in this like very divergent direction, which is I really like the idea of these more female-centered Arthurian adaptations. But I feel like one of the challenges inherent in them is that everybody's always like, but where is Arthur? Mm-hmm. And Arthur in this is like, he's a minor character. He's like this like male accessory / love interest. Like his contribution to the plot is actually much less than a number of the women. And I think that is one of the things that's a little frustrating, is that despite that, there's still so much conversation around Arthur and the place of Arthur in this. So I actually would love to see something where it's just in the future and Arthur is dead already. And I would really love to have some kind of adaptation which is a woman who's descended from Arthur and is supposed to kind of like take up his, like, you know, she like pulls Excalibur out of the sword anew and is supposed to take up his legacy. And then like a lot of the movies, like the series is like a meta commentary on the fact that like the Arthurian legacy and the figure of Arthur is so hard to escape, but that ultimately, like, does he really matter that much? And that this is like her journey to like establish herself as this figure who is separate from Arthur and is going to create her own legacy without him, despite the fact that it also is to some extent dependent on him.
No, I like that idea. I think that's a good use of Arthur. I was like, if I had to squeeze him into my idea, it would be like in a Charlie's Angels kind of way, where he would just be sort of in the background, Bosley style, and then they would be doing more awesome things without him. Because, like, yeah, I think at this point Arthur can just be used more as a symbol of something. He doesn't need to be Arthur physically present leading the charge.
Right. And that even could be interesting if you have a bit where it turns out Arthur's the rightful king, and so say Arthur's king, but then like you see him like once a season basically. And really it's just like the women are like essentially doing their own thing, like semi-ostensibly reporting to him, but not really.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that'd be fun. But yeah, because it is, you know, Arthurian adaptations, I think to some extent, like there are too many.
Oh yeah.
And it's hard to actually do something that's that new. I think this does something new, but I think it's only varyingly successful in some ways at doing that in ways that are interesting, as opposed to doing that in ways that are like, I am doing something weird for the sake of it.
I will say, just to throw in, because I originally thought we needed a recommendation here. I've been reading the comic Once and Future by Kieran Gillen, Dan Mora, and Tamara Bonvillain. So it's kind of the Arthurian legend brought into more modern context, where it turns out this guy Duncan, his grandmother, whose name is Brigitte, it turns out that she was a monster hunter and is related to all of these Arthurian legend things. So I have only read the first arc. It's 6 issues. But that's kind of an interesting way to see some of that mythology pulled into a more modern setting. And if you're into comics, I would definitely recommend it.
Yeah, that sounds really cool. I would definitely check that out.
All right.
Maybe you can come back and guest on it on the podcast.
Oh,
I
definitely would.
Yeah,
because
we are at least open to doing books. I just don't do them that often because it takes more time to read them and because I'm bad at taking notes when I read.
Well, I would definitely come back for that. So
Awesome.
I see here that you normally do a rating. So wait,
Yes.
Ollie's not here. Do you need me to sing something?
No, I won't. I don't make other people sing. So this is the estimatio section.
Okay.
I'll maybe like introduce a little like music or something here.
Okay.
So this is the estimatio section where we rate this piece of media on a scale from 1 to 5, 1 being the lowest. I consider these ratings to be extremely subjective. Mine usually are based on a combination of historical accuracy, how much I like something, and whether it seems like it hates women, which this doesn't, so it gets points for that at least. So what would you give this?
Well, if we're going like out of 5, I'd probably land a solid 2.5. Like, I feel like it has potential, and I would be interested in seeing if they did do a second season where they went with it, because I felt like there was a lot of plot filler in the first season. I think that's unfortunately a byproduct of the Netflix model, is that they'll decide on the number of episodes before they write the show, it feels like.
Yeah.
So then they decide, oh, it's 10 episodes. We have plot for 6, but, you know, we'll make it 10. Which is something that I remember experiencing with the first season of Luke Cage, which I really liked, and then they killed one of the villains like midway through the season. I'm like, why are we still going? Like, so I feel like 2.5. Like, I give it points for the depictions of strong women. I really appreciated
absolutely.
that. I appreciated the people of color showing up on the show. That was good. And yeah, I feel like it has the potential to go somewhere interesting. Once it shed some of the world building, it felt like it needed to do the first season. So I'd say it's a solid like C+ for me, but
right.
I wouldn't go any farther than that. I feel like the weaknesses like were pretty weak for me. So that's just, I felt like it dragged towards the end, and people like motivations changed and things didn't make sense. So that's probably where I'd be. 2.5 out of 5. How about you?
Yeah, I was kind of going back and forth between a 2.5 and a 3. I don't know, maybe I'll say like a 2.75.
We're getting real fractional for you.
I know, right? Because I do want to give it points for the fact that both it's a story so centered on women that it really is not male gazy. I really appreciate that. And I really appreciate that it has a diverse cast. I mean, I complain constantly about Game of Thrones that they're like, well, you can suspend your disbelief about ice demons, but not about like a black person. Okay, sure.
Which is more rare in Game of Thrones.
Right. So I really appreciate that aspect. I really appreciate those aspects of it, and I genuinely had a lot of fun watching this, and I will say I definitely enjoyed it. On the other hand, there's a lot of bits that feel like it's like edgy for the sake of being edgy, which is very Frank Miller, and not the best part of his work.
Yeah. No, the love scene I found particularly distracting when there was like a weird modern pop song. It was very...
Oh my god, that music. Because also the lyrics are, I could be your king. And I was like, I am not here for this.
The conception of it was very like the OC. I know you said you haven't watched the OC, but like anytime they'd have like an emotional moment in the OC, it would basically be this montage to whatever like Emma Jean Heap pop song thing they could squeeze in, and it very much that felt out of place for me in the show.
And the like evanescence-y music was also like not great. But yes, as I said, a lot of edgy for the sake of being edgy, and a lot of things that really felt like they were twists for the sake of having twists. With the biggest thing being really like, I don't see what the point is of like doing the Lancelot reveal. Like, why can't he be his own? Like, even if you have the redemption arc, you know, why can't he be his own thing? There are other people who don't have obvious Arthurian parallels. Like Iris has nothing. Like, why? So, like, I don't think it's a problem in an Arthurian adaptation that you do have some characters who are new. And I wish that they just done that and not kind of forced this parallel that I can't quite see what they're going to do with it and how it's going to be helpful between these characters.
Totally agree. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll go 2.75.
A little higher than me. So
right, really, really getting down to the decimals. So as we finish up, Jillian, are there places where the listeners could find you on the internet if they so desired?
Oh, well, I have a limited internet presence because I currently do not have a podcast, although I am thinking of doing one. If you are interested in anything I have to say or getting a glimpse into my little life in Toronto, I am on Instagram at A Kind of Gentle Hunger, and you can follow me there and see what I'm up to. So yeah.
Cool. And so it also, since Ollie had to leave early, I'll just put in a very self-serving plug for him, which is that if you are new to the podcast and enjoyed listening to him, you can go back and listen to some older episodes of the podcast, because he was the co-host for the first, dozen or so episodes. And if you have enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe in your preferred podcatcher app and rate and review Media-eval on Apple Podcasts, and I'll read new 5-star reviews in future episodes. Please also follow the podcast on Twitter at Media-eval-pod and join our Facebook group. And you can also find me on Twitter and Instagram at Sarah Ifdecker. And finally, if you have any questions or suggestions, I would love to hear from you via email at media.evalpod@gmail.com. So, Jillian, thanks so much for joining me.
Well, thank you for having me. I really had a lot of fun. I hope my weird tangents didn't derail us too much, but no, I had a great time.
I'm all for tangents. This is a pro-tangent podcast. So, thank you, and thank you all for listening to Media-eval. Bye.